Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell. Thank you for joining. We are live on YouTube today. We're going to be going over the financial markets and any breaking news. I'm going to give you my take on what's going on, and hopefully you will learn a few things. So thank you for joining. Please help support the work that I do by making sure you click the like button and make sure you subscribe to all my channels. All the channels are in the description of this video. So please click. You can watch my content on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble, on X and GETTR. You can also follow me on TikTok, Substack, Patreon. So there's lots of ways to follow my work. You can also hear my audio podcasts on my website under Broadcast Radio, on Podomatic, and Apple Podcast. So thank you for joining. Please help support the work that I do by sharing the links and asking your social media to follow me. So we're going to right now just listen into Bloomberg for a few minutes. The markets in New York have not opened up yet, but thank you for joining.
All the polling shows that Donald Trump's approval rating, even though he's not going to be on the ballot in November, are at historic lows. So the question is, yes, he does have sway over his base, but is that going to be enough to win in November? And most of the pundits say that it won't be, but there's still plenty of time until November. There's still the war going on. Gasoline prices are still very high. So it depends on where things go in the next few months.
Bloomberg editor-at-large, Marty Schenker. The World Health Organization says the Ebola outbreak likely started months ago in Central Africa and spread undetected until an event on May 5th acted as a super spreader. The WHO has tallied almost 600 suspected cases and 139 deaths linked to the outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda. WHO Secretary General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus.
WHO assesses the risk of the epidemic as the high at the national and regional levels and low at the global level.
The actual number of cases may exceed 800, according to an analysis by researchers at Imperial College London and the WHO, and could be as high as 1,000 in a worst-case scenario. Chinese leader Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin have hailed their strategic ties in energy trade during a meeting in Beijing. Today, they signed over 40 cooperation agreements in trade, technology, and media. Xi described their relationship as being at the highest level in history. She also stressed the need for peace in the Middle East to ensure energy stability. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg. Tom, Paul, Alexis.
Michael Barr, thanks. I don't know, Paul. Is Troy Lutka over at SMBC? Is he listening to the program?
I don't know. He's good.
You're coming up $6 a gallon of gas, and he's saying you get $5.50 to $6 a gallon of gas. We go back to the great financial crisis in terms of savings.
Yeah.
We get broke.
I don't know. That's, again, I just kind of feel like politically, they can't let that happen, whoever they is. I'm not sure who that is, but that would be really tough here. And a lot of folks are saying, hey, man, we're drawing down on the inventories, whether the inventories are on land or on the water. And that's going to be something that we're going to have to deal with in the back half of the year. So I don't know. But boy, you like to think we can get this straight open at some point.
Troy Lutka, thank you for that research note from SMBC Nico. Go to them to get his great chart there showing a savings rate coming in and in, giving where the gallon is. I mean, where's Tucker? Is he like on sabbatical?
Yeah, he doesn't do this anymore.
I mean, he's on
like a secret projects.
Yeah, that's what it is. Need to know.
Yep. We don't need to know.
We don't need to know. I saw him. He had his Hummer. The color red of his Hummer is H2 is something.
Takes up 2 parking
I
spots.
saw him on Lexington last night. He's parking the car. Futures up 31. Dow futures up 195. NASDAQ roars ahead. This off NVIDIA. Flash. Carol Massar will not attend this.
That's what I hear. She's on assignment, I was just told.
What E. Grafeo.
Yep. Solid.
Pulled an all-nighter to keep up with Tim on this.
She's pretty good.
NVIDIA this afternoon.
Yep.
Please stay with Bloomberg. From New York City on YouTube, Bloomberg Surveillance.
Again, thank you for joining. We are live on YouTube today. what we're going to do is go over the news and some of my perspective, and also the markets and how they're changing because of what's happening in the Middle East. What I want to do is take a look at some CEOs and Mamdani's new grocery plan. This was published by Fox Business.
Ask your doctor if Entyvio, including the Entyvio pen, is right for you. The way you see an idea in your mind. The way
New York City Mayor and self-described Democrat socialist Zohran Mamdani meeting with JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon and Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon yesterday. I'd like to be a fly on the wall for that one. City Hall says, quote, they discussed the importance of rooting out waste in government, cutting red tape through SEQRA reform, and how the public and private sectors can collaborate to deliver both excellent public goods and a thriving city where all New Yorkers can succeed. JP Morgan stating, quote, they had a constructive meeting where they discussed the importance of companies and government working together to help the communities around us and make the city more competitive. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal says Mamdani and Solomon's meeting focused more on affordable housing, small business, and retaining top city talent. Let's get into it now with the chairman and CEO of both United Refining Company and the Red Apple Group. John Catsimatidis back with us. John, great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. What do you make of that meeting? More wealthy New Yorkers fleeing the city. I don't know if that came up in the meeting, but they say it was constructive.
It was constructive, I'm sure. But as any CEO of a large company in New York City, the first thing you think about is your company. And the thing I think about is reducing exposure. Because if this is what New York is in there for the next 3-4 years, reducing exposure in New York, and that's what we're doing. We're concentrating on Florida right now. We're moving a lot of assets there, and we love New York. We all love New York, so we're not going to say we abandon New York.
Yeah.
But reducing exposure for any CEO is the smart thing to do.
Well, I mean, I think it was really smart of Jamie to meet with Mamdani, because let's not forget, Jamie just built 270 Park Avenue, right? I mean, this is the Midtown Manhattan building that cost between $3 and $4 billion. And even though Jamie put all that money into this new building, and it's apparently gorgeous, okay, a lot of people telling me how wonderful it is, but even though he put that big bill, he's got more employees in Dallas, Texas than he does in New York City.
Absolutely, and we're gonna go that direction too. At one point last year, we were looking at, before the New Jersey elections, we were looking at increasing our exposure in New Jersey. But we're being careful of that right now. We are going to move some assets to New Jersey, but majority is moving assets to Florida.
Well, look, we talk about this all the time, sort of in a 30,000 feet way. I mean, when you get down to the bottom line, what does it mean to a guy like you, a business like yours, in terms of all these taxes, and Mamdani's threatening, billionaires tax and an exit tax and potentially raising property taxes? What's the cost on the bottom line, do you think? I mean, when you start studying this stuff, what can you actually eliminate if you get out of Dodge?
Well, first of all, I'm over 75, and the taxes on estate taxes. You want my kids to write me off? I mean, at one point, I'd rather have my family and my kids and
so that's
have the
most
money
important to you, the estate tax and the property tax increases that he's talking about.
Yes, and the other taxes is I think it limits. It limits the amount of investments that come into New York, which New York is the capitalist capital of the world.
Yeah.
We don't want to make it the socialist capital of the world.
Yeah, exactly. And like I was reading Sergey Brin, it's going to cost like $14 billion for somebody like him in California with this billionaire's tax. I'm just trying to get like a bottom line understanding of what the dollars and cents are, actually, because there's a reason people are just actually uplifting their families and their businesses and going to Miami. The mayor also announced the second location for his city-run grocery stores. And you're a grocery store owner. I mean, this is going to be in the Bronx and Hunts Point neighborhood. The 20,000 square feet location is set to open next year. John, the mayor, is facing criticism, obviously, for taking a quote made famous by President Ronald Reagan and spinning it to his governmental advantage. Here it is, watch.
This store and the peninsula as a whole will serve as physical proof of our conviction that government can be a force for good, that government can drive change that improves people's lives. I cannot help but think of the words of our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. He famously said, "The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help." It's a good quote, but I disagree. I think 9 more terrifying words are actually, I worked all day and can't feed my family. We are going to use the power of government to lower prices and make it easier for New Yorkers to put food on the table. It's not just that government can help, it's that government must help, and our government will help.
So what do you think about that, John?
I think it's
Let me just interject. Mamdani is Napoleon the pig from Animal Farm. The problem with Mamdani and the democratic socialists out there is this very fact that they don't believe in the Enlightenment. And the core foundation of the Enlightenment is life, liberty, and property rights. Our whole Constitution, our constitutional republic, is on the foundation of the Enlightenment. So if you have democratic socialists that want to take away your property, then in essence, they are trying to erode the Enlightenment and our constitutional freedoms, our constitutional republic. See, they keep on saying that they want democracy, but democracy is mob rule, not a constitutional republic. Constitutional republic basically means you have representatives in government that are supposed to be doing legislation in the benefit of their constituents. There are some problems with this because you have powerful lobbying groups now, but in a constitutional republic, you also have enshrined in the Constitution your civil liberties. And in that, they're protected from mob rule. Now, people that are educated would realize this is exactly what Plato and Aristotle warned people about, that if you have a democracy, you will lead to tyranny. Now, why would he say that? Because a pure democracy believes in nothing but majority rule and not about civil liberties and constitutional freedoms. And this is the very foundation of our republic. Mamdani doesn't represent, no matter how many times he smiles, no matter how he tries to win over a certain group of people, typically young, the very fact is he doesn't believe in the Enlightenment. And because of this, individuals that are centrist or conservative need to push back against people like Mamdani. Because if we don't, we are going to lose the very bedrock of our constitutional freedoms. And that is the philosophy of the Enlightenment.
Game. The amount of difference that he's going to make is very, very little. And if he's opening up in areas where there's no supermarkets or no food stores, I can understand that he's helping that particular area. But overall, has zero effect except playing the music to the people that he wants him to be supported by.
Yeah. And what about these grocery stores? I mean, I was thinking the other day, once you know that you go into a store and everything's free, isn't everything going to be gone? I mean, are they going to be able to stock it up?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be free. I think he's playing the game. He said he'll have eggs cheaper, he'll have bread cheaper. And look, the supermarket wars have been going on for 50 years.
Yeah.
You know, I have cheaper milk, I have cheaper bread.
Yeah.
And it's just a game being played, and the violins being played to his supporters.
Would you move grocery stores as well out of New York?
Well, you know, I don't believe, you know, most of our stores are in New York City and Manhattan, and the competition is not the competition.
Would you go that far? Would you go that far?
I would. I think our stores is in the right hands could be very successful again. I haven't run them, Maria. I haven't run these stores in 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
If I was running them, you know, it'd be different.
But I mean, your company owns the stores, and you know, you would think that Mamdani calls you to say, "Hey, here's my idea on grocery stores." Have you met with Mamdani?
Yes, we have met with Mamdani. We met with his deputy mayor, Julie Sue, and I've offered my services. I said, "There's nobody knows the people, the food business better than I do."
What did they say? Did they blow you off? Or
they've offered. They want to talk to me. They want to.
Okay. All right. Good.
So they're playing. You know, look, I'm available.
Yeah.
I love New York. I'm available. I want to do the right thing for New York.
Well, a friend of mine was telling me that there's a petition going around for Bruce Blakeman. They want him to be conservative, Republican, and independent. I mean, they want him to have as much exposure on the ballot as possible this November, because if Kathy Hochul goes along with all Mamdani's ideas, the city it's just all like massively to the left, right? I mean, is that going to change?
We have large checks and balances in New York right now. We have Jay Clayton, the U.S. attorney that's been appointed by President Trump. They worry about New York, and they do what they have to do to keep New Yorkers safe, and they take people off the streets. Now, the governor is the other person that's supposed to have the checks and balances in the city. And I think Blakeman has a terrific chance. His chances are increasing. And I think they're going to get down to 50-50 at some point, because the New Yorkers are going to reach the level of where is the common sense? Where is the checks and balances? And I think Bruce Blakeman has a good shot if he plays his cards right and talks a good game. With Kathy Hochul, I've always tried to cooperate with her. I've always talked to her.
Yeah.
But we're worried about her surrendering completely to the Communist Party or the Socialist Party.
And Bruce Blakeman says that's probably what she's going to do. I can't let you go without talking about oil, because oil is now up at 107. President Trump delayed U.S. strikes on Iran. We know that he says that Gulf leaders encouraged him to do so. You run United Refining. What's your take on the price of oil and gas at this point, and what are your expectations?
I think that once there's a peace and the Strait of Hormuz is open, I think you blink your eyes and you're going to see oil and gasoline back to below $3 a gallon. Right now, I understand Putin is on his way to see, and they're stirring the pot. They would rather have checks and balances on Trump. So they would love for the Congress to go Democratic or the Senate to go Democratic. Yeah. But why? Checks and balances on Trump. And the American people out there should realize that Trump is the best thing that ever happened in our country, because he has the courage to stand up against these despots. And I think Xi and Putin are thinking about how they can stir the pot for make Trump's life harder.
Well, it's a great point, because it's all about Trump is bad, and you're right. President Trump has put certain policies in place that have not just helped the entire country, but New York as well.
Fraud.
And Kathy Hochul wants to hide behind, Trump is bad, to hide some of her bad policy decisions. And Bruce Blakeman brought that up when he was on this. You say Bruce Blakeman has a good shot. Here he is with me just recently on this program. Watch this.
Slow down with vanilla milk chocolate almond. That's us.
Kathy Hochul's done more U-turns than any cab driver I've ever met. So let's talk about her U-turn on congestion pricing. Before the election, she said she was pausing congestion pricing. The day after the election, we got congestion pricing, which is nothing more than another tax on the middle class just for the privilege to ride on a public road that the taxpayers already paid for. And congestion pricing is going to come to a community near you, whether it's Queens Boulevard or Flatbush Avenue or any other major thoroughfare, because they need to raise money. They have no concept about curbing a budget. New York State's budget is twice the budget of Florida, and we have less of a population. How can you possibly rationally explain that?
Yeah.
It's out of control. I will put a curb on it.
And by the way, Bruce Blakeman will be joining us this week, so stay with us for Bruce Blakeman coming up. What else does he need to do to get out there more? Because I understand his policies. I know he's got a lot of support in Long Island. I don't know where the major support is in New York, but can he actually do something to make his profile bigger here?
I think that he has to get out there. He has to be out there. He has to make every breakfast, every lunch, every dinner count.
Yeah.
He has to be in every media that he can, not only the center right, also the center left media.
That's
he
right.
has to have exposure and talk common sense. And because at the
All right, what we're going to do is we're going to shift over to BBC. There is a summit between Putin and President Xi. So let's just get at least the perspective of the BBC on this. I'll give you my opinion.
Hello from Beijing. It's 3 p.m. here in the afternoon, and things have been moving. Hello from Beijing. It's 3 p.m. here in the afternoon, and things have been moving swiftly since Chinese leader Xi Jinping welcomed his Russian counterpart at the Great Hall of the People. Vladimir Putin's arrival in Beijing coming just days after Donald Trump's state visit here. In the last hour, Xi and Putin have been taking part in a signing ceremony as they look to further cement a relationship that has become something of a diplomatic lifeline for Moscow during its war with Ukraine. The first document signed was a joint statement between the two countries on further strengthening comprehensive strategic coordination and deepening good neighborly and friendly cooperation. That was followed by 20 other documents signed on trade, technology, food exports, scientific research, among many others. Now, the two countries are also expected to issue a joint statement on advocating for a multipolar world and a new type of international relations. State media here have been suggesting that the quick succession of foreign visits from the likes of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin shows China's growing status on the world stage. Now, earlier, the two leaders exchanged their views on the bilateral relationship between the two countries.
This year marks the 30th anniversary of the establishment of partnership and strategic cooperation and the 25th anniversary of the signing of the Treaty on Good Neighborliness, Friendship and Cooperation.
Even against the background of unfavorable external factors, our cooperation and economic cooperation demonstrate good and high dynamics. The trade turnover has grown more than 30 times in a quarter of a century. It has been steadily exceeding the $200 billion mark for several years in a row. The locomotive of economic cooperation in Russian-Chinese cooperation in the energy sector.
For the View from Beijing, here's our China correspondent, Laura Bicker.
We saw the marching band, we heard the cannons fire, we saw the cheering children. Check, check, check. What we are seeing is an almost near mirror-like image of the visit that President Xi laid on for Donald Trump last week. Now, if you're watching from Washington, you might think, well, hang on a second, what was special about our visit? I think we'll have to see how the day unfolds, but we're also hearing that President Putin may even have tea in Cheongnam, which is the secretive Communist Party headquarters, where Donald Trump got a tour, looked at the trees and looked at the roses last week. So I think it's interesting to compare and contrast. But you mentioned there, when it comes to Beijing, China is eager to portray itself and their president as the leader that the world is welcoming. And that is what you're seeing again today.
Yeah, and that's some of the language you've heard as well that's emerged so far. What's got your attention?
So I think the key thing for both sides in this is when it comes to those energy talks, I think there's a couple of things that drew my attention. The first was President Xi telling his counterpart that he wanted a ceasefire in the Middle East. He's calling for the two sides to end hostilities, and by that he means America and Israel and Iran. Now, when it comes to that call, it's quite interesting to call for the end of a war in the Middle East, but he's sitting across from a man who invaded Ukraine, who invaded Europe. So I think when it comes to calling for an end to one war but not mentioning the other, I think many world leaders will be looking at this and looking at Beijing and say, look, if you want some credibility, you have to bring up the war in Ukraine with your Russian counterpart. The second thing I noticed was the discussion of this Siberian 2 pipeline. Now, obviously, the war in Iran is squeezing China's supplies of oil and gas. So when it comes to energy, they may be looking towards Russia to...
That's exactly what's happening here. So China has a lot of coal. And their electrical generation is primarily through coal, domestic. But they need natural gas and they need oil. And they get a lot of it from the Middle East. But they also get some of it from Russia. So China realizes that if they want to control the 9-dash line or the 10-dash line now, there's a new term now, the 10-dash line, because it's all the way going to some of the islands that are owned by Japan. So the 10-dash line, if they want to control that, they need to make sure that they secure sources of energy that is independent of the Middle East. Well, in the short run, they're going to buy some energy from the United States. But if they're going to make a move on Taiwan, they know that the United States is going to cut off their energy supply. So they have to make sure that they secure energy from Russia.
Their northern neighbor for more supplies. So that pipeline has been in discussion for years. Mr. Putin might see his chance and might believe his chance to get it through and get it signed is now.
I spoke with Klaus Sung earlier, who's an expert on Chinese politics and China's relations with the West and Russia from Mercator Institute for China Studies. He says the meeting between Putin and Xi will show massive political advantages for China.
So I think that many different interpretations, especially focus on economic and energy side. And I think these are important for sure that for especially on the energy side, as we just hear and mentioned. But I think there's another angle here to stress on, especially that what Xi might gain from Putin's visit is that the image of all nations coming to the court, that reflecting Beijing's growing strategic depth. Right, and it can seek stability on hand with the United States while enhancing its partnership with Russia. That all major power come to Beijing to seek favor or have request expectation on Beijing to step in different kind of issue. So I think that is a political image and gain for Beijing to expecting and will achieve from having hosting both Putin and Putin and Trump. In a close days in 1 week.
Yeah, the optics certainly do look like Beijing has a certain gravitational pull when it comes to geopolitics. For Putin's part, though, what will he be hoping to gain from this visit? He comes under very different circumstances with the Ukraine war dragging on.
So yeah, I think that Putin aims to consolidate the China-Russia alignment, right, and to make sure that it does not come as a prize for the reapproachment or reconciliation between U.S. and China when Beijing seek to building up the so-called strategic stability with Washington, right? And I think that also to gain greater support from China, especially when Ukraine gained its momentum in the battlefield. So China's support to Russia, to Moscow, in a certain extent, has become more and more critical. To continue, no matter continue the war, or at least to even think about China as a potential way or possible solution to end the war that saves the base for Moscow.
Still plenty more to come here in Beijing. The presidents will attend an opening ceremony of a bilateral education initiative. Putin will meet with China's Premier Li Qiang to discuss trade and economic cooperation. And the visit will conclude with an informal small group tea session between Xi and Putin, where they will discuss essential issues of the international agenda. That's according to a Kremlin aide speaking to reporters. In and amongst all of that, there will be a lighter moment as well when Putin is expected to meet with the Chinese engineer that he first met back in the year 2000 during his very first visit to China. Well, that engineer is now 36 years old. His name is Peng Pai. He was just a child when they met the first time round, and there'd been a bit of a search going on to see if they could locate him based on the photograph from that year. So that's something else we'll be keeping a lookout for here in Beijing. In the meantime, I'll send you back to London.
So it's all about energy, but the long run is how will China become more resilient if they decide to go into Taiwan. It's all about energy. It's all about energy. Now, what I want to do is do a little bit of a market update. The markets have not opened up yet. They'll be opening up in less than 15 minutes in New York. But the futures for the S&P 500 are at 7,401. For the ones that have been paying attention to me for this year, I've been saying that the year-end target for the S&P 500 is 7,400 to 7,800. So I still have that target right now. I'm a little concerned about maybe the equity market might tumble a little bit. Take a look at my update of the markets that I did over the weekend to give you a bit of a perspective of where I think the support levels are and what's happening in the bond market and what's happening in the energy market. Now, the big driver of this right now isn't tariffs. It's not even the election that's coming up for the midterms. It's about the Strait of Hormuz. And the longer it takes to actually unclog the strait and get the oil flowing, the more we're going to start seeing inflation being baked in to goods and services. And you're seeing this also in the bond market. For example, the 10-year and the 30-year at elevated levels right now. And the oil right now is above 100, 101. The currency markets are relatively stable. There's a little bit of a strengthening of the currency relative to Euro and USD. There's a little bit of a strengthening of the United States currency and also the Japanese yen. There's a little bit of a weakening of the yen and a strengthening of the USD. VIX is still at around 18. So it's still calm. It's relatively stable. Equities may drift up a little bit, but I suspect by the end of this month or the beginning of next month, we're going to see a spike in the VIX. There's going to be a little bit of a sell-off. That spike isn't going to last for very long. Now, what is interesting is that I'm taking the rule, the rule of thumb for the VIX. Sorry about the static. If you're hearing some static on my end, I'm hearing some static. But the VIX has a tendency to spike every 2 to 2.5 months. And we're going to be getting near that at the end of the month here. We're going to get close to that. That kind of coincides with what Trump's been saying about hitting Iran. He said he was going to potentially hit them last Tuesday, and then he was going to give them 3 days of extension, and there's some talks. So I suspect there'll be a VIX spike when that does happen. But it's coinciding with this 2 to 2.5 month periodicity of one spike to another spike. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but the average is around 2 to 2.5 months where you have this heteroscedastic spike in VIX. When that happens, the market sells off. The equity market starts to sell off. So when that does happen, that's a great time to buy and ride it out. Now, there's going to be a support level at around 720 for SPY or 7,200 if you're just looking at the straight index for the S&P 500. But also there definitely is going to be a resistance level at around 7,400. Now, it's probably not going to be a strong resistance level, and a stronger resistance level is going to be around 7,500. So you got about a support level at 7,200, and you have a resistance level of 7,500 for the S&P 500. But there's a high probability that the VIX is going to spike within a week, all the way to about the first week of June. All right, some time frame between now and the first week of June. There's a high probability of the VIX spiking, and when it does spike, I suspect that it's going to spike closer to 25. Now, I don't think it's going to get to 30, but it could. Depends on what happens. Depends on if there's a large retaliation from Iran and hits infrastructure with one of the GCC countries. Who knows? So that's my overall take on the market here. Now, for the bonds, the 10-year and the 30-year, the bond market has been, the yields have been ticking up. Yesterday, it was kind of bad. Now, today, the 10-year is at 4.651, and the 30-year is at 5.17. So as the yields are ticking up, as bond traders are concerned about inflation, the inflationary hit because of oil, and also the over-indebtedness of the country, yields are going to start to go up. That means the bond prices are going to go down. Now, this would mean that the chances of the Federal Reserve lowering rates is pretty slim. Maybe at the end of the year, maybe, but not anytime soon. So the longer that the Strait of Hormuz is closed, it's going to affect car loans, mortgages. So this is going to start affecting the economy. And when we sell other treasuries in the market, especially the 10 and 30-year treasuries, we're going to be paying, as a country, higher interest. So Trump really needs to solve this problem. Now, people will say, well, we got tons of oil. We don't need to worry about it. Well, we still need Middle Eastern oil a little bit for some of our refineries because we need some medium viscosity crude oil and heavy viscosity crude oil for some of our refineries. So we do need some of the oil, but not that much. We've secured it from Venezuela, primarily. But the thing is that it's a global market. It's also going to affect food because of fertilizer and agricultural yields will start to go down. Therefore, food costs will go up. It's going to affect livestock because you got to feed the livestock grain and other foodstuffs. So it's going to affect meat prices, clothing, petrochemicals. It's even going to affect chip development because they need the helium to actually make the chips. Now, these chips for these computers are becoming a really important driver for the economy. Now, it looks like the GDP grew by about 2%. We'll talk about that when I see the news about it. But the point here is that the longer we have oil clogged up at the Strait of Hormuz, the more these financial markets are going to start baking in inflation. And it's going to be, once it's in the economy, you can't get it out. So there's different. A lot of people make the mistake. There is, the layman usually makes the mistake on what inflation is and the differences between inflation and inflation rate, and the difference between debt and deficit. Now, in terms of inflation and the inflation rate, inflation is the cost of something changing. All right, your milk is, let's say, at $8 a gallon, and it goes to $10 a gallon. So there's inflation. Now, the rate of change is the inflation rate. All right, there's a certain percentage increase. Now, that percentage increase, the Federal Reserve tries to have monetary policy where the inflation rate is around 2%. Typically, it runs a little hotter than 2%. So as long as it's around 2.5, 2.6, 2, then we're okay. Even 1.9 or 1.8, we're okay. Once you get closer to 3% inflation or higher, it's a big problem. Because what happens is that inflation rate bakes in the absolute cost of that good, usually forever. So once milk costs more to $10 a gallon, unless there is some sort of deflationary event, like a Lehman event or a Great Depression, milk is going to stay at $10. Now, the inflation rate may go down, so the rate of change from $10 will be slow, but milk is going to stay roughly at 10. Now, there could be some major changes in supply and there's more milk on the market, and then some other dynamic happens. But it takes a while for that to take place. So typically what happens is that once you have inflation, it's permanently in prices. Just look anecdotally. Remember 20 years ago, the cost of a car. Now look at now. It permanently stays high. Now you can get these fluctuations because of certain dealers, car dealerships will give you a few $1,000 discount or something like that. But the overall trend is that the cost of a good or a service remains high even after you control the inflation rate. That's the point I'm making here. The other thing that the layman usually makes a mistake on is the difference between deficit and debt. Our deficit is how much we are in the hole for our budget, and that we have to raise more money to fill that hole, usually in the bond market. So whatever the budget is for the United States government, and you get tax revenue, right? Well, whatever the spending is versus the revenue, they're spending more than the revenue, and there's a deficit. Well, you have to issue bonds to fill that hole. So that accumulation of the deficit year over year, and the financing of wars and social programs and yada yada, it accumulates and you get the debt. So you have deficit, just the fiscal annual problem that we have in the United States, and then the accumulation, the debt. Now, I don't know what the latest number is, but it's close to $40 trillion. And when you look at the size of the economy, it looks like the actual size of our economy is slightly smaller than the actual debt. Well, that's not good. And so our dollar will erode because of this inflation that starts to bake in. So this debt problem on top of the oil issue is going to be the Achilles heel of Trump's administration. And I think that he's taking way too long to solve this problem. And if he doesn't solve it soon, there's going to be crop yield failure because of the lack of fertilizer. And there's going to be a permanent, baked in higher cost of goods and services that you will not be able to get back down. So this is where, even though he went to Wharton Business School, this is where he's going to fail. If he doesn't open up the Strait of Hormuz by the beginning of June, which is just several days away, because this is the 20th, right? So he's got about 10 to 15 days. If he doesn't open up the Strait of Hormuz between 10 to 15 days from now, you will see permanent higher costs of goods and services. And a high potentiality of crop yield failure in certain regions of the world, on top of the super El Nino that's taking place, where certain regions of the world will be much wetter and other regions of the world will be much drier. So crop yields are going to fail. If you have too much rain, it can destroy your crops. If you don't have enough rain, it could destroy your crops. So on top of all of this, this adds to the thesis that I have, that there's going to be a curse on the whole earth that starts on September 11th, 2026. And it's not going to end until the beginning of October of 2027. So you're talking about over a year. Unless we get our act together. And time's ticking. And the longer that Trump thinks that he's in control of the situation, the longer it takes to actually solve the problem, the worse it's going to get. I voted for Trump 3 times. I'm glad he's president, but he is playing with fire here. He doesn't understand the multiple variable dynamics are aligning in such a way that will lead to an amplification. And that amplification is the curse that I'm talking about. There's an emergent property that's taking place here that's going to affect everybody. You add in also AI and how it can be a structural change of the employment, not cyclical unemployment, structural unemployment. Just like the longer you wait with opening up the Strait of Hormuz, inflation will be permanent, structural, higher costs of goods forever. So that's my take on it. All right. Let's listen into Bloomberg for just a bit.
Frank messaging to his Democratic Party of their future. We have lost Barney Frank, respected by all, including his Republican rivals over the years, former head of the House Financial Services Committee as well. Barney Frank of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has died at 86 years old. Red and green on the screen right now, and this is a joy. This is what it's like at our world headquarters. Famous people come in, all the time.
We grab them.
Brunson from the Knicks comes in.
Okay, the markets are open now in New York. And so we have the S&P 500 is at 7,373. VIX is at 18.09. Euro is at 1.159. Oil is trading at 101.97. Bitcoin is trading at 77,000. And the Japanese yen is trading at 159.04. Natural gas is trading at 3.059. Please help support the work that I do by making sure you subscribe to the content that I create and hit the like button. All right. I produce all these videos for free. So if you want to help support the work that I do, be a paid member to my Patreon channel or Substack channel that helps produce this content. Again, all of this is for free for everybody. And you can also donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. I greatly appreciate it. Again, all this content's for free. And please take a look at the lecture series that I created about the pathogens on the boat. So I think you'll learn a lot about my perspective on what just happened. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer. I have supplements that will help to slow down the aging process. These are supplements that I use every day. I've been working on an anti-aging protocol going all the way back to when I was 16 years old. Now, most 16-year-olds don't worry about aging, right? But the reason why I did was heart disease ran in my mother's side of the family. I had a lot of uncles that passed away young because of heart disease. My mother had multiple heart attacks, and so I was very hyper focused on health and what can be done. And I accidentally ran into a book at Borders, back when Borders was still around. I was 16 years old and I was in the health section and I saw this book and it was talking about antioxidants. And so I read the book, and to me, it was fascinating. And that was the beginning of my journey. So it was about taking lots of different vitamins that were antioxidants. And then when I started doing triathlons in my 20s and 30s, mid 20s and early 30s, and training for that, I started realizing that certain types of supplements would help you in terms of your performance. But also, how do you kind of slow down the aging process, right? So through athletics and through supplementation, I tweaked this protocol throughout my decades of life. And then, with understanding how the human body works and seeing how certain supplements could be stacked a certain way to improve the actual anti-aging, then, I just tweaked that protocol over the decades. And then new supplements came onto the market that were able to enhance what I was doing. So this is something I've been doing for a very long time. All right. I'm in my 50s and I started this journey when I was 16. All right. So I know this pretty well. And also just the formal education of how the human body works. Now there's some research that was being done over at Harvard that was looking at mitochondria and how mitochondria can be put into tissue that's gone through an ischemic situation. So sometimes when you have a heart attack, you have a lack of blood flow, right? You have a lack of blood flow and tissue starts to die. Well, if you actually inject isolated mitochondria in the ischemic tissue right away, you can increase the probability of reversing the damage from the heart attack. All right, so it's about energy. It's about the health of your mitochondria. It's about making sure that the cascades within the cell don't signal for death, but signal for staying alive. Because if there's disease in the tissue and in the cells, there'll be signals that are produced by the mitochondria and other pathways that will tell the cell to go into apoptosis. So what you want to do is that if that tissue can be reversed, you can do, so there's two types of necrosis, irreversible necrosis and reversible necrosis. If that tissue can be reversed, that reversible necrosis, then you can actually improve the health of your tissues. Now, you have tissues that haven't reached necrosis, and then if you keep them healthy and improve the health of those tissues, the better off you are. But the point here is that it has a lot to do with antioxidants and has a lot to do with the health of the mitochondria. So with that, please go to my store and follow my advice, because this is what I do every day. All right, it works. And it's a very simple concept. Soak up free radicals, boost up your energy levels, bring down inflammation. All right. Now, my research at Harvard was focused on autoimmune disorders and how to bring down pro-inflammatory cytokines to reduce destruction of tissue and to allow the body to heal. So if you can naturally, through supplementation, bring down pro-inflammatory cytokines, bring up your energy levels, improve the health of your mitochondria, you are allowing your body to heal. Because when you look at the vectors of aging, your energy goes down, free radicals go up, the health of mitochondria goes down. Inflation, inflammation goes up. So with that, when you have these things happening when you're older, if you mitigate them, if you increase your energy levels, improve your mitochondria, soak up the free radicals, and bring down the inflammation, you're slowing down aging. Now you can get fancy and improve the sirtuin health and reduce methylation of your genes so your epigenetics are more youthful. And I have supplements that do that too. But the point here is that the three key things to slow down aging: bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals, boost up the health of the mitochondria. And it will do wonders. So please go to my store and get the Boomer Boost. Now, Boomer Boost, what it'll do is help with brain function, cardiovascular health, musculature, energy levels, soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation. This is something you should be taking every day. This is a month's supply if you take 1 scoop a day. You mix it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or even with just milk. Now, I mix it with soft foods like hummus or yogurt, but take it every day. And what you'll notice within 72 hours is that you have a steady burn of energy. And over time, you're going to notice that you're getting rid of that brain fog. You're going to be able to concentrate better. You're going to have better sleep. Musculature will improve. You will have more vitality, more energy, and you will be slowing down the aging process. Another really important supplement, especially if you're 40 years of age or older, is taking Myotrol. Myotrol will help to build muscle and maintain muscle. And when you get older, you can't build muscle and maintain muscle, and you start to atrophy. The reason being is that you have genes that are methylating as you get older. Another key feature of aging is that when you age, your methylation starts to increase. So certain genes are less expressed or turned off. Well, you want the youthful genes to stay on, not be turned off. So you want to reduce methylation. That's another key feature to my protocol. If you keep the inflammation down, soak up the free radicals, improve the health of the mitochondria, then what will happen is your methylation will stay youthful. You'll have youthful gene expression. Myotrol will help with the gene expression because it has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans. This will help with building muscle and maintain muscle, and also the health of the mitochondria. Are you starting to notice a theme here? It's about the mitochondria. Another key feature, when you look at athletes like Tour de France athletes, which those athletes are some of the most fine-tuned athletes on the planet. for endurance. They can start developing something called mitochondrial burnout. So the mitochondria is producing all this energy and all of a sudden they burn out, right? Well, if you improve the health of your mitochondria, you're going to be able to. So the point I'm making is through some of these athletes in the Tour de France, they get the mitochondrial burnout. It's very similar that they're aging faster because their energy levels start to drop very quickly. So it's important to keep the health of your mitochondria, and Myotrol will do that too. Now, if you're an athlete, younger or older, you'll benefit from taking Myotrol because it'll also help to build strength for your sport. So you can learn from sports medicine, geriatric medicine to help to slow down aging. And that's what I've been doing for decades. I am the most comprehensive person on this subject within the price point that I offer. So you have this tech bro called, his name is Brian Johnson, and he spends $2 million a year on, trying to slow down aging. You don't need to spend $2 million a year. But you need to invest in your body every month and have a holistic approach. Proper diet, proper exercise, mindfulness, make sure you get enough sleep, learn new things, talk to people, have a more positive outlook on life, but proper supplementation is also then stacking. So by stacking the Myotrol and the Boomer Boost, you're helping with musculature. And another supplement that's super important to take is vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is such a simple supplement, but it does wonders. It helps with cardiovascular health. It helps to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis because they're infected. Vitamin D3 also helps with bone density. So it's really important to take every day, but you should be also taking it with magnesium to increase the efficacy of vitamin D3. Now, let's talk about magnesium and vitamin C. Vitamin C and magnesium will help with your immune system. And when you're boosting up your immune system, you don't get sick as often. When you don't get sick as often, your body doesn't need to remodel, and it can keep on going down that anti-aging track. If you watch people that get sick all the time, they age faster, 100%. So one way to slow down the aging process is don't get sick as often. Now, vitamin C and magnesium will help with improving the immune system, help with skin health, but also the magnesium will boost the efficacy of vitamin D3. That's why it's so important to get the vitamin C and magnesium or the magnesium and zinc from my store. It's really important to take. It's a great supplement that you should be taking all year round, but especially during the cold season. So please go to my store, use discount 5, you get $5 off. You spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Use discount 5. It's all caps, discount 5. If you follow my advice, you take these supplements on a regular basis, you're going to slow down the aging process. But I got lots of other stuff that you can stack together to really supercharge what I'm saying here. Now, again, I'm the most comprehensive at an affordable price point. There's nobody better. Nobody. So just pay attention. I've been doing this for a very long time. So please go to my store and get the great supplements that I offer. It's obvious it works. All right. So, and it helps support the channel. It helps support the work that I do. And it helps support your health and wellness. It's a holistic approach. Please go to my store. Now, with that, let's take a look at what's going on in the market.
$68 down $2.70. ebbing there. I don't want to oversell it. There's been a dearth of news out of the Middle East today. We'll see how that changes. And of course, perhaps the president in his comments at the Coast Guard Academy will drive that conversation for the 10-year yield 4.65%. Again, in the equity space, we're open for trading. SPX up 23, Dow up an equivalent 23 as well. NASDAQ up 0.8%. From New York City on YouTube.
All right, so they're on commercial break here. So let's take a look at what's also going on in the news here. All right, let's listen into the Minnesota fraudster.
Now to the Trump administration's war on fraud, which could also come up in today's press briefing with the vice president and fraud czar, J.D. Vance. The convicted mastermind our future $250 million fraud scheme is set to be sentenced this week. The Justice Department wants Amy Bach to spend 50 years behind bars, saying this, that she, quote, took advantage of a once-in-a-century global pandemic. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Compagno, here with my co-host, Kayleigh McEnany, and also joining us today, Cheryl Casoni, Fox Business anchor and host of American Dream Home, Kennedy, the host of the Kennedy Saves the World podcast, and John Yoo, former law clerk for Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General and UC Berkeley law professor. Now, the mastermind's defense team says that she should get credit for handing over documents that helped convict her co-conspirators. They're hoping for about 3 years in jail. Before she was convicted, Amy Bach told Fox News that state officials like Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison probably knew what was going on the whole time.
I have to believe that the governor's office and Keith Ellison's office were aware of this. They've said they were involved in helping the FBI. They've said they were made aware. But apparently I'm scary, so they couldn't do anything. I don't know. I have to believe they were aware. And again, if they weren't, shame on them for having a system that their lower level staff don't bring something of this level to their attention.
Now, Bach has also implicated Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, whose name appeared in emails and texts during her trial. Bach tells the New York Post that she, quote, struggles to believe that Omar didn't know what was happening in her district. She told Fox something similar.
I don't know what she knew. I don't know. I know that I was duped by a number of people. We also have seen videos of Safari Restaurant giving out thousands of meals, pallets and pallets of food being distributed. Was there fraud? According to the DOJ and the FBI, yes. According to the jury verdict, yes. But how much? And why don't we know that? There's just so many holes and gaps in these cases. Ilhan Omar visited those sites. Why didn't the FBI?
John, I feel like rarely do we get so many statements coming out of a defendant's mouth, right? And this is really interesting that she's essentially saying that part of the prosecution's case against the whole institution writ large, which is new or should have known. But here it seems like there's a lot of known. What is your take on both sides of this issue here as she faces in court?
For sure, she's trying to get a lower sentence. So she's trying to cooperate with the government. And the prosecutor should be taking advantage of this to see if this is a broader conspiracy. It seems hard to believe that $250 million were stolen by the federal government and no one else knew about it in Minneapolis. That's one. Second, as I learned on Kayleigh's show last weekend, some of this money has possibly ended up in the hands of terrorist groups in Somalia. If that's true, this is not just Medicare, Medicaid fraud. This is a counterterrorism investigation with much higher sentences and much longer, much more money involved, much greater powers on the part of the government to investigate and surveil. But the last and I think most important thing is people like the governor of Minnesota and the attorney general who are elected to protect us don't have immunity from this kind of prosecution. So I think the Justice Department should be investigating Governor Walz and the attorney general to see how many times did they meet with these people? How much money did they receive in campaign donations? did they lay off this conspiracy to allow it to move forward and benefit politically, which would make them potentially co-conspirators in a counterterrorism investigation? And they need to be held accountable, I think, not just them saying, oh, we eventually cooperated with the federal government when we investigated this. Were they involved in it from the beginning?
Such great questions, because the money flow, Kaylee, indeed, it went even to Somaliland. I mean, the ability for the government thus far to trace the funds has been robust and substantial, and totally illustrates potential culpability. We've been talking about, or I've been saying that I was hoping for some type of criminal liability here, because this exceeds the standard of negligence so greatly, and there is zero immunity that they can enjoy in their offices, because none of this was within the bounds of official duty capacities. This is all fraud and misconduct and breach of duties. There is nothing about this that has to do with policy.
Yes, and it's bigger than Feeding Our Futures. In fact, it goes back to 2019. That's before Feeding Our Futures, with a whistleblower report, an investigator. That investigator sounded the alarm. It was his job to investigate things like this. His entire unit sounded the alarm, saying it's a near certainty that at least a percentage of the fraud proceeds in Minnesota go overseas and are being siphoned off to one or more designated terrorist organizations. So to the point that Professor Yu's making, if I'm Tim Walz and an investigator in my government, who, by the way, his unit ended up being shut down, why? I would listen to that. I would pull him into my office. I would find out about that money and ask, why and how is this going overseas to terrorists? I agree with Professor Yu, and he presented this theory to me for the first time, that if you're aiding and abetting terrorists, this could be terrorism charge. This is a big deal. But state actors is where I'm looking at for prosecutions at this point. These fraudsters, it's like playing whack-a-mole. You hit one fraudster, another one pops up. You hit one, another pops up. You need to look at what state actors knew. And that's something immediately when I presented John Yu's legal theory to the vice president, he said, I'm going to go to DOJ. I'm going to take that there. They should be looking at this. Of course, the facts match the law. That's DOJ's call, not the executive branch's call. Nevertheless, we need to look at it. And finally, I would just say this, Gavin Newsom, too. I mean, going back to 2022, he was warned about hospice fraud. What did he do? He put a moratorium on hospice. He shut down 287 hospices, but that was over 4 years. J.D. Vance has shut down 800 hospices in 2 months. So what was Newsom doing? Why were they sitting on this information? Why were governors enabling fraud? And I would just note, Newsom hit back at J.D. Vance this weekend saying, J.D.'s lying in the fight against fraud. We've walked the walk. You've walked the walk? Then why'd you do a fourth of the work that the Trump administration has done over a 4-year period? They have done in 60 days. You're not walking the walk. You're playing catch up.
And there have been zero complaints or resistance from those 800 organizations shut down because indeed they were fraudulent.
This is exactly what happened on Animal Farm with Napoleon the pig and you know, the other pigs that were fleecing the other animals. You know, they said on Animal Farm, kick out the capitalists and we're going to have a new government. It's going to be communistic. We're going to all work together. But then all of a sudden, Napoleon the pig wanted to drink and wanted to have a party all the time while all the other animals of the farm had to work hard. This is what's happening. It's no different. The Democratic Party and the ultra left is fleecing America's taxes, tax-paying dollars. They're fleecing America. They don't care. They don't care because they'll never be held accountable. It would be even worse if the Democratic Party was running the House and the Senate at the federal level. It'd be even worse. It's so hard to get them punished, prosecuted right now. And that's under a Trump administration where the Republican Party is in control of the House and the Senate. Can you just imagine the fraud that would be happening if the executive branch and the legislative branch was run by a bunch of Democrats? They want to erode the Constitution. Now, what's scary is, and if you don't believe me, just do a simple AI search, okay, on Grok or ChatGPT. I think Grok is better, but ChatGPT, in terms of ChatGPT's interface in creating slides or spreadsheets is better than Grok, but maybe Grok will catch up with that. But overall, I use Grok Now, just whatever AI system you use, Gemini, OpenAI, Grok, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just do this simple test. Take a look at Harvard, what the reading list was required for, let's say, in the 1850s, and then do another search. What was the reading requirements? What books were required readings for 1900, then 1950, then 1960s, and then do another one in let's say 1980s, 2000, 2020, and then 2025. And you will be shocked. You will be shocked on if you just map that out and how the classics were so important. And then all of a sudden, right after World War II, you started seeing the creep of philosophical works, economic works, and historical works that were moving away from the classics and moving into postmodernism. And that postmodernism promoted, or promotes, because this is the current curriculum, communism, multiculturalism, lack of family unit, erosion of patriotism, and erosion of faith. Our current most elite schools in the country, as required reading, promote communism over capitalism. Required reading. Marx, not Adam Smith. Now, before this inflection point, it was Adam Smith and The Wealth of Nations. That's no longer required. You know, you need to read Karl Marx and about communism and how bad capitalism is. And so it indoctrinates a lot of people to start becoming more of a libtard. And now you fast forward to what's happening today. This type of fraud was around, but not at the same level. Back in the 90s, you still had some people that actually knew about Adam Smith. You still had some people that believed in family creation and not killing a bunch of fetuses. And they still, even back in the 90s, there was some semblance of religion in one's life. So that's why I keep on stating this on almost every show. It's about God, country, and family. And those pillars are on the bedrock of the Enlightenment about life, and liberty, and property rights. That's not what the Democratic Party represents. And no matter how you want to spin it, they're just wrong. Now, when is conservatives or even middle of the road centrists going to push back? Can we maintain this type of curriculum in the most elite institutions in our country where they're promoting postmodernism, promoting it's okay to kill 65 million fetuses since 1972? More than that. More than 65 million fetuses were killed. Well, there were some rape situations and some incest situations and some, the far majority of the abortions are because of social economic. Stop kidding yourself. The erosion of religion. Well, if you don't have religion, how are you going to get your morality? well, you're going to get this Nash equilibrium because of just the, some sort of consensus in the global cosmos. Really? Let's look at the data. Crime is up. Killings are up. People are stealing from stores. That's up. So, wait a minute. I think we need a little bit of religion in our lives. You don't have to go all the way, full tilt and be a zealot. But this idea of God, country, and family is really important. And it's been eroding ever since after World War II, slowly. There's this change of the pedagogy of what is taught in these institutions that led to where we're at today. Now, what we got to do is push back. The required readings need to be Adam Smith, not Karl Marx, or a comparative, where you're analyzing Karl Marx and Adam Smith at the same time. No, they don't want to do that. They want to say how bad, because what does Adam Smith represent? Adam Smith represents capitalism. Adam Smith represents a European-centric concept, Western culture. Well, if you want multiculturalism, you got to throw away Adam Smith and you got to focus more on taking something from people. You got to take, well, then you start listening to Karl Marx, who, by the way, was a bourgeoisie. Funny how that all worked out. But the thing is that you have a very large constituency in the United States now that has been programmed through this inflection point right after World War II, and it's only become worse of this postmodernism. So it's not a surprise that it's happening. That's the root cause. The root cause is what I just said. Oh, there's more killings here and there's more fetal deaths here and all this, right? That's the headline news. That's not the root cause. The root cause is the pedagogy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and use this stack to help to improve your cardiovascular health, your brain function, and your immune system. Ashwagandha root helps to control your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels. When you do that, you're going to help with that. You're helping with that immune system and helping with bringing down inflammation, helping reduce that inflammation at the vascular level so you're not having plaque formation. Also, by bringing down inflammation at the brain level, you're reducing the chances of early onset of dementia. And you're keeping the neuron and the neural network strong. So, lignans. This will help with your immune system, your endocrine system, soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation. And like I said, it helps your cardiovascular health, your immune system, your brain function. Bringing down inflammation is really key. Keeping those pro-inflammatory cytokines down to help to slow down the aging process. Turmeric soaks up free radicals, brings down inflammation. Now, when you're bringing down this inflammation, you're soaking up those free radicals. You don't have the high levels of oxidized LDL, so you have less plaque formation. That means that you're going to have a better blood flow to your brain. When you have better blood flow to your brain, guess what? Your brain works better, but also your other tissues. When you have better perfusion of blood to your kidneys and your liver and your spleen and to your, to your skin, to your stomach, to your other organ systems, they all perform better. So if you have cardiovascular disease, it's not just a heart problem, it's other organ system problem because perfusion is less because you have blockage. Now, do you understand why it's so important to pay attention to me? Now, if you stack this, it supercharges what I'm talking about. You stack the ashwagandha root, you stack the turmeric and the lignans together. And this is going to help with your cardiovascular health, help with brain function, and boost up your immune system. And when you do that regularly, guess what? You slow down the aging process. So please go to my store and get the turmeric, ashwagandha, and the lignans. Stack them together for the max benefit. You can take them separately, but if you stack them the way I'm telling you to, it's supercharging the effects. Now, I also want to briefly talk about C60. C60 is a very powerful antioxidant. C60 isn't a lipid, an oil, for proper absorption. You take a teaspoon a day every day, preferably on an empty stomach in the morning, but take a teaspoon a day every day. And what you'll notice is that you're recovering after a workout faster. You're also soaking up those free radicals and boosting up the health of the mitochondria, so you'll have more ATP. That means your cells will have more energy. You will have more energy to perform throughout the day. In addition, by soaking up free radicals at the vascular level, you're reducing oxidized LDL, the concentration. If you reduce the concentration of oxidized LDL, you're reducing plaque formation. Because how plaque forms in your vascular system is very simple. You have inflammation that causes a microtear in the intima of the vessel. You have LDL floating around that gets oxidized by free radicals. Those oxidized free radical, those oxidized LDLs that are moving around, they get into the vascular tissue, into the media, which is the middle of your vessel. And what happens is a macrophage comes in and eats it. It senses that something bad, something foreign is there, and it needs to get rid of it. Well, when a macrophage eats up oxidized LDL, it turns into a foam cell, and that is that's the plaque. It starts to build up. So over time, the plaque starts to build up, and also calcium depositing starts to happen. But if you reduce your LDL concentrations and increase your HDL concentrations and soak up free radicals, you're reducing plaque formation. And not only that, there's a protocol that actually you can reduce the actual blockage. So the bottom line here is this: take the C60, take a teaspoon a day. It's also going to help with your neurons. Your neurons will perform better because the mitochondria will be healthier. They'll produce the ATP to produce the neurotransmitters to allow for the positive neuroplasticity. So your memory and your cognition will improve. And also inflammation in tissues will go down. And when that happens, you're slowing down the aging process and allowing the tissues to heal. And you're boosting up your immune system and helping with your endocrine system. It also helps with thyroids and your glands. So it does a lot of great stuff. You can get it in extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, or MCT coconut oil. But take a teaspoon a day, every day. And this stacks really well with the ashwagandha, the lignans, the turmeric. Now, I have a health protocol. I have an anti-aging protocol that if you take the max 35 or cleanse or max 14, that helps to build up your innate immune system. Take the probiotic that helps with your gut. Take the C60, soaks up free radicals. This is like 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. Taking the turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans that brings down the inflammation, soaks up the free radicals, helps with the cardiovascular, and boosts up that immune system. And taking the boomer boost that revs up your energy levels, helps with cardiovascular health, brain function, soaks up free radicals. You get lots of benefits. So by taking those together as the protocol, you get huge benefits from it. but you got to do it every day. Turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans, Boomer Boost, C60, Max 35 or Cleanse, and the probiotic. And when you do that, you're going to start noticing that your body is performing better and feeling better, and you're more energetic, and you look healthier, and you're just more active. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the C60. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. Use discount 5. I want you to save some money. It's all caps, discount 5. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. But the products that I just mentioned will do wonders in slowing down the aging process and help boost up that immune system, help with your cardiovascular system, your brain function. A lot of people, you're going to start noticing for various reasons, they're going to have cognitive decline. Well, you can slow that down by just taking what I just said. If you improve your blood flow to your brain, guess what? Your neurons will last longer. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the great supplements that I offer. All right, let's continue on with the fraudsters.
Now, you talked about Gavin Newsom's always over chatty response, but Governor Walz hasn't responded to J.D. Vance. Now, the vice president said he hasn't heard from him at all about the fraud probe. And remember, though, the governor took credit somehow for the fraud probe and the results that were uncovered. Let's watch.
No, Tim Walz has not contacted me. I did see that he took credit when we did those 22 subpoenas that I mentioned, that the investigations that we're doing for the anti-fraud stuff in Minneapolis. Tim Walz did take credit for it, even though Tim Walz has not helped us at all. We've gotten some cooperation from local authorities, but from the governor's office, we really haven't gotten that cooperation.
So he takes credit, by the way, after he calls the journalist, however, a white supremacist. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so Tim Walz and Gavin Newsom both personally attacked Nick Shirley and doxed him and tried to do whatever they could to get their unhinged supporters to go after him, putting his safety at risk. But what I'm most curious about, I can't stand slimy politicians. And I put Governors Walz and Newsom in that category because it's only when it has to do with self-preservation and further ascending the political ladder do they actually jump into action. Like, they're not public servants. They're personally serving their own needs and ambitions. And, Tim Walz, and we've heard this from whistleblowers, he and his office were shutting down anyone who was bringing the fraud to the attention of the state government. And there were plenty of people who were like, this is not right. There were those of us covering some of the PPP loans in real time during COVID saying, this is ripe for corruption. There are plenty of people out here because these are vetted so flimsily that they're going to take advantage of this. And it's very interesting that Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, she was the one who authored and pushed the Meals Act in 2020, which allowed for a way lower threshold of, trying to figure out and codify who was getting the money from the federal government to give out meals to kids and families in need. So they didn't have to have any verification after her federal legislation. So it's like, I would also like to know from her, it's become your pet project.
I was on this show in the middle of the pandemic from my home studio when we were all at home, when I got the alert that my identity had been stolen for a PPP loan fraud. It was absolutely rampant. Now, Cheryl Kennedy talked about Ilhan Omar, and let's talk about her disclosure forms, her financial disclosure forms for a second. We're going to pull up that information so that we can get from you the analysis of her economics. Here's the breakdown of her 2024 financial disclosure. It went from an estimate between $6 and $30 million, way down somewhere between $18,000 and $95,000, when a lot of eyebrows were raised about how much she had. And look, you have to wonder, we're just alleging here, we're just brainstorming, but the nexus between changing her mind about the threshold of the financial disclosure and all of a sudden being a multi-millionaire, I guess you have to get to Congress first before you can get rich.
Yeah, you mean they shouldn't be trading stocks? That's a whole other conversation. But a couple of things here. One of the things that I love that David said, the vice president, he said, look, he goes, my family back in the day, we needed these programs. These programs that are people in need that actually need
food through SNAP. They need hospice care. They need funding through Medicaid. They're getting lost in all this, and I think that's heartbreaking. At the same time, John, you mentioned the $250 million. It's looking like it's in the billions. You need a forensic accountant to go through to try to trace all the money. There are ways to do it. Some of the things that they have found, and this is first from Feeding Our Future, okay, you inflate attendance sheets for meal distribution, fake invoices, fake food purchase receipts, multiple businesses. You talked about that with the vice president. You shut those down. That's one thing. The autism services, there are people that do need autism services, but this is money that's taken right out of Medicaid, fake signatures, therapy never delivered, kickbacks that were being given out to certain families. I mean, the fraud, but you can use technology and you can't, again, use forensic accounting to get to that money. The problem with it, and we've been asked this on the Business Network, can we get the money back? Can the American taxpayer recover a clawback of what has been lost in Minnesota? Likely no, because most of that money, if it wasn't put on in bags of cash on planes back to Somalia, which there is, of course, reporting on that, unfortunately, it's been moved over to crypto and property. African property. So that money likely is gone. And I think that's the biggest heartbreak of all of this. You know, going back to the COVID pandemic, the PPP loans, we saw massive fraud in that. We get through that. Now we're hit with Minnesota. And now the next step of this is going to be California. And the California fraud is likely just as large as what we found in Minnesota, financially speaking, anyway.
The second gut punch to me for this is that not only is there not recompense to the taxpayer, as you're saying, but we've already absorbed higher taxes to cover all of those budgets to begin with. So the American taxpayer is essentially being penalized twice. Once when they paid for all the fraud to begin with, and then again when they don't get the money back. Final thoughts, Professor?
Well, I think that this is an example of why we have a huge budget deficit like you're talking about. We had rampant spending because of COVID. As Kennedy's talking about, a lot of fraud built in, but they were throwing money at helicopters, but they never brought the budget deficit back down. And we haven't devoted enough resources to enforcement. And so what this all shows is that, yes, maybe we allowed things to get loose, but we've got to crack down now and get the people who stole money from the taxpayer. I mean, this is one city, Minneapolis, $250 million were stolen. Why don't we have J.D. Vance's task force go to California, New York, Illinois, places where I hate to say it, but I bet the fraud was even larger there than in this one city in Minneapolis. And we're the taxpayers. This is our money, and now it's ending up in terrorist groups in Somalia. So I think that we should be spending more, I hate to say it, but more money for Justice Department lawyers and FBI agents to get to the bottom of this.
One quick point, we do have a ballpark estimate of how big this could be because one program, Medi-Cal, in California over a several-year period, 3 to 4 years, they estimate it could have lost $146 billion. One program, one state. This could be a $1 trillion fraud epidemic. Trillion.
$1 trillion.
Be sure to like and subscribe.
You know, there's enough money for fraud. There's enough money for more for the Pentagon and to have a war effort. But you know what? The average citizen, middle of the road, they're having a hard time with purchasing certain things for the household. Cars are way more expensive than they should be. They're way over-teched. There's way too much tech in these cars. They need to downsize the tech and make the cars more affordable. Home prices are astronomical. Even building a new home is astronomical. And the thing is that the materials for building, let's say, a 4,000 square foot home versus a 3,500 or 3,000 square foot home is not that much. It's just space. So they're charging you per space, not the actual materials that are being used. You know, that's the problem. So the reality of the situation is the cost of everything is too high. Then, you know, there's a lot of students out there that have, because of the cost of education, and let's just say that they, you know, receive degrees in the sciences and, you know, they get important skills, not just humanities type stuff, right? They're having a hard time paying their loans. There needs to be loan relief. But we have $1 trillion or $500 million $500 billion that can be just wasted away. What? Why? There are American citizens suffering that need help. Our veterans, our elderly, even the ones that are young need some help. But where's the help? It's never for them. It's always for the fraudsters. It's always for the military industrial complex. It's always for someone else than the actual people that really need it. That's a problem. And so I can understand why the youth is losing faith in the country. I can understand why the youth has gravitated to these other sources of knowledge that are antithetical to the Enlightenment, because they're viewing the government that they currently have doesn't help them. Well, that needs to be rectified. It's not that our constitutional republic is bad. It's not that capitalism is bad. It's just that we have people at the trough taking the money that they don't really deserve. And the money that is there should be for programs to help people that are actually citizens. I don't believe that an illegal alien should be getting social benefits. Call me old-fashioned, but I don't believe an illegal immigrant should be getting social benefits. They shouldn't be here. What about the citizens? What about the legal citizens? Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotics. You can get the VeggieCap version or the powdered version. I prefer the powdered version, but either one, you'll benefit quite a lot from taking it every day. It'll help to bring down inflammation at the gut, help you to absorb your nutrients. It helps to boost up the immune system at the gut level, reduce leaky gut syndrome. And with a good gut, you're going to improve your skin health, and also your sleep patterns will improve. And by having better sleep patterns, you'll slow down the aging process. You'll be able to consolidate memory. You're going to be able to detoxify your central nervous system. And these are all very beneficial for you to maintaining those neural networks. So taking a good probiotic is actually going to help with brain function. In addition, your metabolism will improve. So please go to my store and get the probiotics. Now, with these probiotics, you'll also notice that with a good gut biome, you're reducing chances of a depressionary mood. See, a lot of people don't realize that part of the depression that's taking place in the United States is poor gut. And when you improve the gut, you are actually improving mood and brain function. So keep that in mind, that there's a lot of people that are having mood disorders, depression, they sluggish, lethargic, they just don't have the will. It may actually be a gut problem. So please go to my store and get the very high quality probiotics. Now, vitamin B complex. Vitamin B complex will help with the electron transport chain within your mitochondria. So you produce more ATP, you'll have more energy. The first 4 B vitamins helps with the electron transport chain. This will rev up your cellular metabolism. And vitamin B complex helps to protect your neurons. You need to take vitamin B complex every day if you're 40 years of age or older. Clarity factor, very powerful neurostack. This will get rid of brain fog. This will allow you to concentrate on tasks and help with those neural connections. So you're thinking faster and have better memory. Drink it with filtered water. Clarity factor is a very powerful neurostack that you should be taking every day. And omega-3, it helps with cardiovascular health. It brings down systemic inflammation and helps to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. And like I said, when you're reducing inflammation and you're bringing down your LDL levels, you're reducing plaque formation, helping with your cardiovascular health. It's super important because you get better blood perfusion. If you notice that people that age, especially when they're in their geriatric years, they radically accelerate their decline when they have poor blood flow. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the omega-3. And lastly, structural nanosilver soaps. I have in stock peppermint soap. Please go to my store and get the peppermint structural nanosilver soaps. Very high quality. It'll help the health of your skin. And because of the structural nanosilver, it neutralizes. All right? It's very high quality. Please go to my store. Use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. All right, let's go to Bloomberg.
It's going to take time for us to see that. When people say that, I think it's about making new hires. So I don't think they're replacing them yet because they're not as reliable at this time. So it's really about that productivity component. How can you make the existing worker more productive by implementing AI? So I think it's the marginal cost of labor rather than the existing cost.
One of the things we've been dealing with really for a long time, but it's been even more pronounced for the last 10 weeks or so, is inflation. And we're seeing it in the bond market. How do you guys think about inflation, and how does that impact maybe how you invest?
Yeah. So it's still multifaceted, right? So the inflation portion of it, I think, is a little bit of an overreaction because we don't know if it's going to stay. The PPI we got last week, it was very, very hot. But it was pretty much concentrated in transportation and warehousing where diesel prices were like double, right? Yep. So we don't know if that's going to seep into the rest of the economy. So there's a little bit of an overreaction, but nevertheless, we do have high yields. For small caps, it's more of a fundamental headwind, right? Because about less than 50% of small cap companies actually have floating rate debt. So that's a real cash flow problem for them. For larger companies, especially for like Mag 7s, still sell off in tech names, I think that's a knee-jerk reaction. It's more about multiple compression for them, but it's not today. It's maybe down the road. It just makes them look more expensive than they were before.
We've seen this bond sell-off, not just in the U.S., but globally, kind of ease up a little bit here. Yields are not, they're lower, actually. They've extended their losses in the last hour or so. But how worrisome was that to see bonds sell off like that and have the stock market pretty much shrug it off?
Yeah, I don't know if they're shrugging it off. I think today they're just taking a breather. It tells me that the spike that we saw in the last few days was just overdone, right? It's out of fear. And the fear really is about the Strait of Hormuz. A fear is not only about the standstill in the Strait of Hormuz, but it's about how long is this going to take? How long will this be sustained? And then will inflation creep into the rest of the world while we wait? And it's really a binary risk. It's either it opens or it does not. And that's really difficult to price in. So overreaction is kind of normal.
What are you doing with energy here? Got to oil at $100 a gallon. Got to make some hay here, maybe, I guess.
Yeah, oil is hard to invest in because it's in the futures market, right? So that is more of a headwind. So, earlier you asked about how am I positioning things. It's really about how does oil impact inflation and how does that impact yields and therefore prices in the bonds, right? So it's really on the fixed income market side. I have kept duration short for 5 years. And that is, it's been a good place to be. And I think it will continue to be in a good place because of the binary nature I just talked about. The yields are just going to be very, very volatile. In some ways, I'm surprised at the level to which it has gone up. But I'm not surprised that it has been sustained in that high level.
How much of that increase in yield do you think is due to a higher term premium versus that knee-jerk reaction to oil prices?
Higher term premium, if we're talking about debt deficit, et cetera, the question is what will happen in 30 years, in 10 years? There's definitely a component of that for sure, because with the war being also expensive and we keep asking for more money, it doesn't look like we're heading in the right direction of trying to reel in some of these costs. So yeah, bond vigilantes are definitely out.
Anna, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Anna Rothman, she's a unique guest in this studio. She has a doctorate in music. How cool is that?
That's amazing.
Yeah, isn't that cool? And from the Cleveland Institute, which are very, very good folks out there. I've heard about that my whole life. Anna Rothman, Chief Executive Officer, Grenadier Advisory, joining us live here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. We got some stocks moving higher here. I don't know. S&P's up 50.
The S&P 500 is up. It's trading at 7,401. VIX is trading below 18. And oil did break 100. It's now trading at 99.68. Natural gas is trading a little bit lower than the open, which is trading at 3.044 at the moment. All right, let's listen to Cash Jordan. Mamdani freezes rents forever. But before we go to Cash Jordan, because he's going to rant for a little while, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. This collagen will help with your skin, your nails, your hair, your musculature, your bone density, also the health of your joints. This is important to take every day. This is a month's supply. You can mix it with soft foods, filtered water, milk, or a smoothie. I mix it with soft foods. Some people even put it in coffee. It's up to you. But take it every day and do a little bit of resistance training, and you'll notice that your joints and your musculature will improve. But it also helps with your skin. Good night formula. This will help for you to get into those 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. It has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. And when you are in those cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep, you're going to be able to consolidate memory, detoxify your central nervous system, and be well rested. When you do that regularly, you're going to slow down the aging process. Take it every night. Resveratrol. Resveratrol will help with youthful gene expression, help to get rid of cells that are in senescence. And by taking resveratrol, you're also helping the health of your mitochondria. It soaks up free radicals because it's an antioxidant. This stacks really well with C60, and it will help with your basal layer. If you take the resveratrol with the C60, you're improving the basal layer of your skin, and that basal layer is producing the new skin cells. So if the basal layer is healthy, your skin will improve on top of taking the collagen. So a great stack for improving skin health is to take the resveratrol C60, the collagen, and take the vitamin C with the magnesium. Because the vitamin C in that supplement, when you drink filtered water, will cross-link with the collagen and improve the dermal layer. So you're improving the dermal layer, which is the middle layer of your skin, with the collagen and the vitamin C. You're improving the basal layer with the resveratrol and the C60. And you're improving the topical layer by using the structural nanosilver gels. This is a great way to improve your skin. So take a look at the skincare boxes that I have under the anti-aging on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. So resveratrol, really important to take. And last, heirloom barley. Heirloom barley will help to detoxify, help to soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase, and bring down inflammation. This will help to improve your immune system, improve your endocrine system. You'll be able to recover quicker after a workout. And by detoxifying your body regularly, your endocrine system will perform better. You're going to be slowing down that aging process. And by soaking up free radicals, bringing down inflammation, you're helping with brain function. You're also helping with your cardiovascular health. Have you noticed a theme to this? Like I said, slowing down the aging process is actually really easy. Soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation, boost up the health of the mitochondria. And what will happen is all your different organ systems are going to improve. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. So let's listen to Cash Jordan, because New York is imploding.
Motion passes. Outrage after the city's Rent Guidelines Board voted to propose rent increases for rent-stabilized apartments ranging from 0% to 2% for one-year leases.
This is going to be bad news for New York's mayor because everyone living here was promised frozen rent. And although a 0 to 4% increase doesn't mean much to a voting base who's been taught that capitalism is evil and elected a mayor who's promised to replace it, waiting for the impact of socialism isn't something anybody wants.
Right now, there are over 100 renters out here behind me waving signs and chanting, freeze the rent. This has really been an issue that's riled people out here.
And I'm on a fixed income. I still got to pay 40% of my income goes to rent.
Landlords have seen major profits over the last few years, and while tenants have seen 4 straight years of increases.
Rent artificially capped below operating costs. Buildings are starved of the funds needed to run. Maintenance gets deferred, then skipped. Now Mayor Mamdani wants to freeze rent.
Landlords say rising costs are hitting them just as hard.
Even if they give us a 2% increase, it's not enough.
The rent has to cover the expenses. They don't want to raise the rent. Don't raise the taxes. Don't raise our insurance. You know, we can't continue like this.
YouTube Premium is ad-free YouTube and exclusive access to all things VIP, so you can superfan from your sofa. YouTube Premium, it's way more than ad-free. Try 1 month on us.
So the key word about this upcoming rent freeze is that it is potential. It hasn't happened yet. And what nobody's talking about is voters here are at a boiling point. They were promised frozen rent. They were promised free grocery stores, free buses, you name it. And none of that stuff has happened. People are tired of waiting for socialism. They want it right now. And if there is any rent increase as part of this new deal with the city's regulation body, it will mark another betrayal of the rabid communist voting base here that was told everything was going to be paid for with other people's money and can't seem to figure out why their living expenses will not stop skyrocketing. And of course, living in an anti-business, anti-construction, pro-shoplifting sanctuary, that's got nothing to do with it. In their minds, even though the world knows the $5,000 rents here are the product of a lack of supply, something that could easily change if the anti-capitalists running this place would let underdeveloped land turn into apartments somehow, or would let shoplifters spend time in jail as they steal things, forcing up the cost of everything that hasn't walked out the door of a store just yet. But here's the real reason the Mamdani machine is slow walking off a communist cliff in order to implement this new socialist world order for our city. The old world order, it's got to be given the boot, but it's still around and it's fighting back. And you've got billionaires threatening to take their companies and their jobs somewhere else at a time when landlords and those who've succeeded and provide something people here need are being punished for it. As Mayor Mamdani brags about record-setting fines, which property owners that have too many regulated apartments will not find the money to pay, and thus will have their properties seized by the city as part of this communist revolution. There's a fight going on our streets here, and some New Yorkers are wondering if there's anyone out there who can save us.
Michael! Mr. Bloomberg! Last great mayor. One of the best mayors in New York. Bring him back! We need you back! Bring him back! Come for at least 1 year. One more year. We need help.
Right, so according to New York's former mayor Michael Bloomberg, the city's on its own. And that's not just those of us living in it who stand to lose, as this communist regime erases every semblance of American life and values, but it's also the people clamoring at the gates for the thing that's going to destroy this city permanently. And as you're about to see, their impatience for this takeover is rather disturbing.
The motion passes.
Outrage after the
Look
City
at
Rent
this.
Guidelines Board voted to propose rent increases for rent-stabilized apartments, ranging from 0% to 2% for 1 year leases
2%.
and 0% to 4% for 2 year leases. Tenants
They're going
rallied both
crazy.
inside and outside the meeting, saying they shouldn't be forced to choose between paying rent and buying essentials like groceries.
So what? So then the landlord has to be forced between repairing the building and letting it collapse, because that's the other choice. And that shows you the whole problem we got going on here. If one side wins, The other side loses, and if it's the landlord that loses, everybody loses. At least if rents were to go up, the buildings wouldn't fall down, and we wouldn't have less housing and an even worse crisis, because that's the issue. The issue is we don't have enough of these things. We don't have enough apartments. Had we had more apartments, people would be able to find places to live that were affordable because they would have options. They would have choice. Landlords would have to compete. You wouldn't be able to charge $5,000 a month for a place that's a total dump if new places are built across the street. But we aren't doing any of that. And the fact that you've got these government-regulated apartments at all means we don't even have a capitalist housing market to begin with. If we had that, every apartment would be able to have rent that was equal to the fair price of that apartment. But because half the city's apartments can't even be rented for what they're worth, those places are falling apart right now. Those are places the mayor himself has toured and seen people complain about. And the people who are out there upset about a 2% rent increase on something that's $1,000 a month or less, these folks don't understand that, sadly, if this happens, there's just going to be more chaos. Even though we've got a living, breathing example of this right now. Watch this.
Here's a New York City lesson for you. And timing matters because history is about to repeat itself. New York City kept the subway fare at a nickel for 44 years.
Oh,
from
yeah?
1904 to 1948. So instead of adjusting the fare, they deferred maintenance, skipped repairs, and starved the system of money year after year.
Oh.
What happened next is the government stepped in and spent billions on what years of underfunding had destroyed. And today, you're still paying $3 a ride for a subway that's unreliable.
Look at that. So our subway is like a bunch of government-regulated apartments with frozen rent because the subway fare was frozen. And what happened? The whole thing collapsed and imploded around us, and it's right back to where it was. The fares keep going up. The crime keeps going up. The system never seems to work. People can't seem to figure out why. Well, that's because it doesn't charge what it needs to charge to sustain itself. Therefore, it's always a disaster. That is going to be our housing market. And that's exactly the point that's being made right here. And it's frightening because we should be able to look at this and say, gee, this sounds like what they're trying to do over here. Nope, nobody wants to see that. They want the subway to be free too, by the way.
Artificially low fares, deferred maintenance, government takeover, and higher costs. You see where I'm going with this? Rent-stabilized housing, of course. Rents are artificially capped below operating costs. Buildings are starved of the funds needed to run. Maintenance gets deferred, then skipped. Maybe when enough buildings fail, the government will step in. They'll spend billions fixing what years of underfunding destroyed.
Right.
And your rent, just like the subway fare, only going up. Now Mayor Mamdani wants to freeze rent, but New York already ran this experiment on the subway. We know exactly how it ends. Expensive and still
But that's
broken.
what the city wants to do. They want to step in. They want to control these buildings. And even though rent might not go up in these regulated buildings that they're going to fine out of existence and then seize after they step in, because those houses are off the market, because they crumble or the tenant never moves out, regardless, they're eliminating apartments. This is a scheme to eliminate housing, which means the housing that's left that is free market, what's going to happen to those rents? It's going to go straight up. And it is. Right now, rents are $5,000 a month on average in certain parts of town. That's totally unaffordable. Nothing about freezing the rent is affordable because the best thing it can do is eliminate housing for everyone. But what about this idea that if somebody lives in an apartment now, they should be able to pay for that apartment in perpetuity and live their life, and the landlord shouldn't have any control over it? What about that?
Forced to choose between paying rent and buying essentials like groceries.
And I'm on a fixed income. I still got to pay 40% of my income goes to rent. And then I still got to pay medical, my drugs, my food, all the other expenses.
Many of us are operating very old rent stabilized housing. It costs a lot of money to upkeep these buildings. The revenue that we use to do that is the rent. And if rents are not increasing, they're defunding the buildings.
Oh, so let's defund the housing that we have. That's never worked. Defunding housing doesn't create affordable housing. If anything, it just puts people under. And this guy that lives in an apartment, which is unaffordable, it's sad that he lives in that apartment. It's sad that politicians won't allow new apartments to be built so that people struggling with affordability can go out and find a better option. Nope, there's no competition. Prices aren't going down. Instead, we've got government regs that just push the prices up. And landlords, as you hear from them, they don't know what to do because they're already losing money on these buildings. They're already unable to cover the costs of repairing them. And if they are able to cover the costs, whatever their market rate portfolio is versus their stabilized apartment portfolio, they're getting the money from people that don't have capped rents yet.
A rent freeze was a key campaign promise for Mayor
was.
Mamdani, with average rent in New York City topping $3,000
every neighborhood.
according to Zillow. He has no direct authority over the decision. That power rests with the Rent Guidelines Board. Mamdani appointed 6 new members in February. He released a statement reacting to the—
Oh, so the mayor appointed 6 of the people you see sitting here. The deck is stacked. This is going to happen. And what's fascinating about this is we're witnessing something very interesting. We've got the economic center of capitalism, right? The symbol of capitalism in America, New York City's where you got the stock exchanges, where you got the millionaires and the billionaires, the people making the money. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And it seems to some folks that the new mayor coming in doesn't really want that to happen. He's gone on recent offensives against people who have become very successful and have created jobs and spent billions of dollars on projects in New York that make the city better while paying billions and millions in property taxes. And people are trying to figure out why the mayor is so hostile to the things the city needs to keep going. They can't seem to connect where this hostility is coming from with the fact that without these rich people, the city's going to go belly up. Well, maybe that's the entire agenda. Maybe what we've got to do is get out of our minds our values, right? Because as a normal person, we would say, well, if we need the tax revenue to fund all this free stuff, we better not be mean to these people. We have to forget all that. We're not dealing with somebody who has our value system. And to understand that, you need to listen to an analysis of a regime that also doesn't have our values.
That is a fact. Eventually, there would be economic collapse. But here's what this regime is. We can't look at the regime through the prism of the United States logic, values, and reason. We have to look at the regime in terms of who they really are. Hardliners are running the regime. What matters the most to them is to stay in power. They will ride this economic peril out. They don't care about the suffering of their people. Shutting electricity down.
Listen to that. So this is an analysis of a former General Jack Keane talking about the situation in Iran, how they will not surrender, even though to a reasonable person, they should have surrendered the first night this whole conflict over there started. That's the same thing we're dealing with here in New York. We've got a new regime in place, which does not have our values. They don't care if people's rents go up. They don't care if groceries are unaffordable.
This is why I keep on saying the Democratic Party that has aligned themselves with these socialists don't realize that they're eroding the Enlightenment and the bedrock of our constitutional republic. Democratic socialists don't believe in God, country, and family. And they don't believe in the Enlightenment. It's antithetical to the Enlightenment. Why do I say this? Because they believe in postmodernism. Postmodernism, in a nutshell, anything goes. Whatever you want. It's all this multicultural BS. What does it mean to be an American? It's not a hyphen American. It's not an Irish American or a Jewish American or an African American, as they phrase it. No, it's just American. There's no hyphenization. But in a multi-vantage point universe of the postmodernism, that anything goes, everything's relative, you start having social decay. Because where's the virtue? What is anchoring virtue? What is anchoring morality when anything goes? See the problem? Social democrats will destroy this country. And people that are intelligent or care about the country and the well-being of a future generation needs to push back. We cannot allow democratic socialists to take control of local, state, or federal positions. Centrists, conservatives, even slightly left of center, need to push back against these democratic socialists because they are destroying the country. Now just use logic. There's not a communist country out there that actually has civil liberties, and has a productive economy. All right? We're the best show in town, the United States. It's not China. All right? If that was the case, then why is there so many Chinese students coming to America to be educated and trying to stay? Because China's a shithole. People need to push back.
Well, all they care about is giving the old world order the boot so that they can come in and totally remake this place. They will ride this out. And to them, if a bunch of millionaires and billionaires vanish, if their businesses go belly up, that's fine. You know why? Because it means that those people are going to be gone. They're not going to be around to oppose them any longer. And the people who stay are already voting for communism, already want more help from the government. They're just going to cry out for more of it. And this may set up an eternal socialist power structure in New York that sticks around for a few decades or longer. And this is how you have to look at Mamdani. You can't look at him and say, well, what would a reasonable person do? Because his values are reasonable to him, but not to us.
And we can make a huge list of everything that's happening to the Iranians in terms of the economic peril and the suffering is about to take place. But you have to, again, recognize who are we really dealing with here. The guys running the regime, all they care about is staying in power. They don't care about their people. They've demonstrated that time and time again in terms of their economic peril that they put them in to make certain they stay in power. So they...
Hi, it's Leve. Check out my new music video, Mad Woman, on YouTube. Your one-stop...
in their minds can outlast us.
Right. And look on the screen right here. Everything happening over there, their economy collapsing. We're going to see similar stuff in New York, maybe not to this same degree, but the housing price is going to go the same direction these arrows are pointing. The grocery prices are going to go the same direction. Things are not going to get more affordable as the government shuts down businesses, kicks out its achievers, and tries to take over. But that is the entire purpose of this. The entire purpose of this is to outlast the opposition, to win elections, to establish a permanent power structure that can never go away and never be defeated. And after Mayor Mamdani gets reelected, he can choose a successor and then use the platform that has been built in New York to catapult himself to something else, maybe a higher office in the United States government somewhere. Maybe he could be a senator, a congressman, maybe a governor, who knows? But this is what we're looking at here. A replacement power structure and voter base is being set up, which does not have our values, which values socialism instead of capitalism. And the goal here is for that to be the dominant force here forever.
He released a statement reacting to the proposal, saying, New Yorkers are being crushed by the cost of living and they need real relief. I'm encouraged to see the board taking seriously the data around affordability, operating expenses, and the pressures facing both tenants and small property owners.
I mean, that's an eloquent statement, but it's factually incorrect. If landlords are already underwater on their apartments, if they're already not earning enough money to fix up their buildings, then we're not taking seriously the expenses involved in this at all. It sounds good. It sounds like the mayor cares about both sides of the issue. But what's interesting here is we only get statements like this after we realize there's a problem. We get statements that come out and say, hey, oh, the mayor's actually pro-business. Oh, actually, he doesn't want to defund the police. Oh, no, actually, he doesn't have such a viewpoint on such and such an issue. We always get that as a reaction to something that comes out where he says he's going to freeze everybody's rents, where he says he wants to confiscate buildings with fines and stuff like that. It's always a reaction, which shows you where this is headed. He goes first and then tries to back off, and goes first and then tries to back. It's like we're being led somewhere with all of this rhetoric, and no one can stop it. It's going to happen. People are going to wake up one day and wonder, oh, gee, how did we get here? Well, this is how.
A little better with having 0% included now. But we know the game. We're all already talking about expecting that they'll probably vote the highest amount.
Even if they give us a 2% increase, it's not enough.
Landlords say rising costs are hitting them just as hard.
The rent has to cover the expenses. They don't want to raise the rent. Don't raise the taxes. Don't raise our insurance. You know, we can't continue like this.
Right. Landlords have seen major profits over the last few years. And
major profits? What is this guy talking about? How do you have major profits over here and people over here who say they're literally going out of business because taxes and insurance? Somebody's not telling the truth, or somebody doesn't understand what's going on. Perhaps they're confusing profits with revenues. Revenues can go up as rents in a housing crisis spike, But profits can also be at record lows if a lot of apartments are regulated and if the expenses to run those buildings are so high that nobody makes any money. So either both of these are true or people are just trying to use talking points to push an agenda that's going to be bad for housing. Now, is it sad that somebody has an apartment with rent that every single month they struggle to pay? Absolutely. But that's not the fault of the property owner who's got higher taxes and higher insurance and higher water bills every single year. That's the fault of policies that jack up those costs. And if you're going to raise taxes on those property owners, where are they supposed to get the money? It's not the landlord's fault that they need to raise the rent. It's the government's fault that the landlord has to raise the rent. The landlord wouldn't be able to raise the rent, but they don't have competition. There isn't another place for you to move into. There's no choice. There's no options for these people who are stuck in rents they can't afford. Right now, if you're a market rate tenant and you're paying $5,000 a month for an apartment, you don't like your apartment, if that's where you're at economically, you could walk out the door tomorrow and find another $5,000 apartment. That's better, and your landlord might negotiate with you. You have some leverage, but that doesn't happen if the apartment you're in costs $1,000 a month and the landlord's already going broke fixing it. The best thing for the landlords of these rent-stabilized apartments are for folks that live in them to move out, and then the apartment comes off the market because landlords, they got to pay for water, they got to pay for heat, they got to take care of the building. They have to spend money if somebody lives in an apartment. And if that apartment is a drain on the building, it's actually better for them for there to be no housing. That's the system we've created here. Is it being done on purpose? Is this because New York has been given over to an ideology that has a different value system than what we're used to in this country, that does not value capitalism anymore, now values socialism? Are we looking at a socialist takeover? Is that why this doesn't make sense and nobody can seem to connect the dots? Let me know. See you in the next video.
I'm optimizing my Amazon PPC campaigns, but I could.
Like I said, democratic socialists, they're eroding the Enlightenment. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the structural nanosilver toothpaste. This will help to whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, reduce inflammation at the gum line, and with good oral hygiene, you are also improving your cardiovascular health. A lot of people don't know this. Poor oral hygiene can cause problems with your vascular system. So please go to my store, get the structural nanosilver toothpaste. It has no fluoride. You know why? Because fluoride makes you stupid. All right? Now, structural nanosilver toothpaste will also help to neutralize. So it's the best toothpaste out there. Is it a little bit more expensive? Yes, but it's structural nanosilver and it works great. So please go to my store and get the toothpaste. Use it every day. I also have structural nanosilver lozenges and drops. Because we're in the allergy season and people are cleaning outside or in the garage or in the basement, they're cleaning their home, there's dust around, you want to protect that oral pharynx, create the secretions by using the lozenges and the drops to protect that oral pharynx, to prevent you from getting allergies and catching a cold. So please get the Manuka honey lozenges. I also have orange splash lozenges fortified with vitamin C. And in stock, I also have the cherry flavor drops, structural nanosilver. And again, this is great for cleaning. Take them before you start cleaning so you're protecting your oral pharynx. Great for allergies, but also during the cold season. So stock up, have some at home, have some at work. You never know when you need it. And also gladiator barley. Gladiator barley is very similar to the heirloom barley, but it has one added benefit. It helps to build muscle. So you're bringing down inflammation, you're soaking up free radicals, you're detoxifying your body, and helping to build muscle. So this is a month supply. Get the gladiator barley, and either the gladiator barley or the heirloom barley can be stacked with Boomer Boost to get added benefits to help slow down the aging process. And by taking the Boomer Boost in the barley, you're helping control your A1C levels. So you're helping prevent diabetes. most people need to realize here, in the United States, most diseases are self-induced. Now, some people will say, well, they got a predisposition because of some genetic thing. Well, maybe, but that's not very often. And just because you have a predisposition genetically doesn't mean you have the epigenetics to lead to the disease. So there's an environmental component to it too. But most of the big diseases in the United States, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, most of it is self-induced. That's the fact. So if you want to reduce your healthcare costs, you need to invest in your health by taking the proper supplementation, changing your lifestyle, and realizing when you look in the mirror that your health, most of it, is your own doing. It's that simple. But most people want to just kick the can down the road, blame it on someone else. People were mentioning in Cash Jordan's video that they can't afford healthcare. Probably because he, has to take medication for heart problem or whatever. You can literally, if you follow my advice, chances are, if you do a little bit of cardio training and resistance training and take the proper supplementation, get the proper sleep, eat properly, stay away from processed foods, chances are, if you pay attention to me, you'll never have to take heart medication your whole life. In most cases. Now, there are some people that it may have to, but in most cases in the United States, so if you want to lower your personal healthcare costs, you should invest in your body and do exactly what I just said. Or you kick the can down the road and then you're on pharmacopoeia and healthcare costs start to increase because so many people are on it. And then people whine about how much your healthcare costs are. You won't need the healthcare if you pay attention to me. If you watch people that are centurions that actually had the blue zone diet and had moderation and exercised, regularly and was an active person, they're not taking metformin or any beta blockers or anything. They're taking nothing. So wait a minute here. Our lifestyle in the United States is causing disease. And people are complaining that they can't afford healthcare. If everyone did what I'm saying to do in the United States, our healthcare costs would go down by tens of billions of dollars. Well, no one wants to pay attention. It's all right, because I know what's right. And so everyone else is just going to drop off of the face of the earth at a younger age. Well, you're going to have people that do listen that actually are going to be more productive and not have to be on pharmacopoeia. But it's your choice. It's a free country. All right, we're going to go back to Bloomberg here. But before we do, make sure you go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and use discount 5. I want you to save some money.
Mirrors what we've seen from Home Depot yesterday, which reported a shortfall in one of its key sales metrics. But overall, there seemed to be some reassurance that the company reaffirmed its guidance despite talking about all this pressure. CFO saying that they're already seeing oil cost pressure, plastic and resin prices. And despite that, they managed to stick to their forecast. And I mean, even Home Depot yesterday managed to erase that loss. So it looks to be one of those days when the rising tide in market is just lifting all boats.
Good stuff. Thank you so much. Tatiana Darie, strategist for Markets Live here at Bloomberg. If you want to check out her work, you can type MLiveGo on the Bloomberg terminal. And for more conversations like this, subscribe to our Stock Movers Reports, 5-minute audio reports on the biggest winners and losers in the stock market, available wherever you get your podcasts. Let's talk about TJX, the owner of TJ Maxx. And in the UK, I think it's TK Maxx. Is that right? Yeah, I don't know why they changed the letter there, but Barry Ross, Gilbert probably knows. She is our senior equity analyst covering in retail. And TJX this morning came out with good earnings, hiking its sales outlook, a real contrast to Target. But Mary, this is a very different company because this is a off-price retailer as opposed to Target, which has its own brands and doesn't claim to be off-price.
That's exactly right, Scarlett. Really, the big difference here also is on the execution side. TJX is known for executing seamlessly. So they also guide conservatively, and you expect them to beat every time. And they also surpass analyst estimates because analyst estimates are usually a tad above the guidance that the company provides. So yeah, there was a lot of strength in the quarter. And I think both TJX and also Target benefited from higher tax refunds in the quarter. And it does appear that Target is improving their execution, but they're also cycling a 3-year stacked comp sales decline of 7.4%, whereas TJX is cycling a 3-year stacked comp sales increase of over 9%.
Ooh.
Again, the difference in the execution and the appeal of off-price, and especially now that consumers are having to cope with higher gas prices.
Yeah.
And then as earlier in your just recent broadcast there, you were talking about how the implications for that are raising costs of some products. And also, we could get freight. Right now, we're not seeing that because there's been some hedging in place. For example, with Target, that was one of the benefits in their margin in the quarter was on the freight side, freight hedging.
Mary, is there anything that TJX isn't doing well? You mentioned execution has been flawless, but that's kind of what investors expect from this company. What could it be doing better? Where is it perhaps leaving money on the table?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can't see where they're really leaving money on the table at this juncture. And if anything, what we continue to see every single quarter is the availability of excess merchandise. And this is across brands that span the appeal from consumers at the very low end to consumers at the very high end. So we're continuing to see a lot more luxury merchandise. It looked like in some of these shopping hauls that were posted, there's a lot of product from Celine, Gucci, Yves Saint Laurent. I mean, it's amazing how much out there in luxury. And we're seeing that luxury is off right now. And so now you can get it at discounted prices in the off-price channel, at least with TJX and their runway model.
What's the growth strategy for a company like TJX? Is it more stores? Is it driving digital growth? Is it raising, average selling price? What's kind of the growth story for a company like TJX?
Yeah, so Paul, that's a good question. For them, it's really continuing to expand. So that is opening up new stores, and they are opening up more newer stores this year. I think they have on target.
Now think about that. A discounted, lower quality clothing retail sees growth opportunities in building new stores and reaching more of an audience in the United States, and even in other countries, but in the United States. That doesn't sound like a great economy, does it? And hence the K-shaped economy. You need to focus on making sure that you are as productive as you can be, mentally and physically, as we go through this structural shift because of AI. It's not going to help you if you're not healthy while you're going through this. It'll be worse off for people that are unhealthy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Max 35 or the Cleanse or Max 14. This will help to boost up your innate immune system. It'll neutralize. What you do is you take a teaspoon a day, every day, swish in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds or so, and then swallow it. What this will do is neutralize, improve the oral cavity health, improve your oral pharynx, maintain your mucosal barrier, and boost up your innate immune system. And do that every day. It's very simple. So please go to my store, get the Max 35, Max 14, or Cleanse. They're at different price points and different parts per million. And I have structural nanosilver gels. Now, they're dual purpose. You can get it in a tube, you can get it in the tube form or the quick dispenser form. You use them the same way. If you have a cut, an abrasion, or a minor burn, put it on the lesion. It'll help to heal it quicker. In addition, you can use it as a daily skincare. And if you're around someone that's not feeling well, or you're cleaning and you want to, create a barrier during the cold season or cleaning in the house or whatever, put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your eyes, around your ears, lightly coat your nostrils. They'll stay active for 5.5 hours and neutralize. This is a great way to create that barrier and prevent you from catching something. So please go to my store, get the structural nanosilver gel or the Renew, which is in the quick dispenser form. Both are very high quality. Have some at work, have some at home. You never know when you need it. But when you need it, make sure you use it. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, let's listen into Fox News. There's a developing story talking about how Israel is preparing to resume war with Iran.
Strike Iran again if Tehran remains unwilling to budge on its nuclear program.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst joins us now with the latest from Tel Aviv. Hey, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps issued a new threat overnight, warning the United States and Israel against launching a fresh bombing campaign. The IRGC said in a statement, quote, if the aggression against Iran is repeated, the regional war that was promised will this time go beyond the borders of the region, and you will be dealt crushing blows in places you do not expect, and you will fall into the abyss of defeat and destruction. The threat comes as President Trump says he was just an hour away from deciding to strike Iran earlier this week and is giving the regime a few additional days to reach a deal.
How close were you to striking Iran?
I was an hour away. We were all set to go. You're talking about yesterday.
Yes.
We were going to be striking it would have been happening right now. Yeah, it's all done. The boats, the ships are all loaded. They're loaded to the brim. And we were all set to start.
As for the possibility of an agreement, reports indicate there are still serious gaps in the positions of the United States and Iran. Vice President J.D. Vance was asked about this process yesterday.
We're locked and loaded. We don't want to go down that pathway, but the president is willing and able to go down that pathway if we have to. So what we've done is tried to be as clear as possible. What are our red lines? What are the things that we're willing to be accommodating on? And what are the things that we absolutely must have? And as the president has said ad nauseum, and I think I've said it a lot too, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
The U.S. blockade of Iranian ports continues to put economic pressure on the Iranian regime. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper described the current state of play in the Gulf, with the shaky ceasefire still in place.
The ceasefire continues, and consistent with the president's direction, we've established a highly effective maritime blockade of Iran. To date, we've turned away 88 ships. There has been zero trade into Iranian ports and zero trade out of Iranian ports, squeezing Iran economically and creating powerful leverage for the ongoing negotiations.
Overnight, the Israelis held a 5-hour cabinet meeting as officials here believe the war could resume any day. Guys?
Trey, do you believe Israel is ready with enough interceptors, anti-drone technology in order to stop a would-be influx that's expected for what's left of the Iranian arsenal?
Yeah, the Israeli military remains on high alert, and they've had more than 40 days to resupply those air defense systems with those interceptor missiles that are used to shoot down the incoming Iranian ballistic missile fire. The coordination, I'm told by regional sources, is the highest that it's ever been between the United States and Israel. They are in lockstep when it comes to defending U.S. forces and the Israeli people in the event that this conflict resumes. You have a variety of air defense systems from the Iron Dome at the lower end to the Arrow 2 and 3 systems that will work to shoot down incoming fire if the bombing campaign resumes. And we've seen these threats from Iran's IRGC. And it reminds me of the ancient Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC, when then the Persian army threatened to use so many arrows that they would blot out the sun. And the Greek forces responded, then we will fight in the shade. And this has been a source of strength for the Israeli people because they understand there is a joint defense here when it comes to the Americans and the Israelis. There are U.S. forces still on the ground. They have THAAD and Patriot missile defense systems, and they are preparing for the possibility that the Iranian regime, if they are targeted, works to overwhelm those systems.
What a great compare.
Yeah.
I mean, just always on top of your game.
Yeah.
Great job, Trey.
Trey, in the summers, did you go to Sleepaway War College camp?
Right.
I wish.
I know. It was great. That was
You
awesome.
do a great job. I know you study a lot when you're not on the air, and we appreciate it. Your knowledge is just incredible.
Right.
All right, it looks like Trump took some questions from the media while he went to the Connecticut trip. But before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. This will help to remodel your joints and improve the cushioning of the joint, improve the cartilage. This is perfect for someone that has a sports injury or just regular osteoarthritis. If you have some arthritis that's going on because you're getting older, you have a sports injury, take this every day. You can stack this with the collagen, and this will help to remodel the joint and improve movement and articulation. So please go to my store, get the collagen, stack with the collagen for max benefit. It's a great way to remodel your joints. And on my website, it goes into detail on how that all works. Basically, you're blocking certain receptors, certain enzymes, you're recruiting glucosamine and chondroitin and ACAN. You're using collagen type 2, and this helps to rebuild that joint. I also have super strong relief. If you have pains because of arthritis, rub this topically on the area that you have pain. If you have sore muscles or a sprain or even a tension headache, this is a topical that will give you relief within 90 seconds. So if you have that arthritis, put it on topically where the arthritis is. Let's say on a shoulder, put it around the shoulder. It'll help to kill the pain. And then take the collagen and the collagen to help remodel internally the joint. And over time, you're going to notice that you're getting better. Now, for best results, what you want to do is move that joint up to a point where there's some pain and then go a little bit more and count to about 20 seconds. And then release and wait a few seconds or a minute or so and then do that again. Go up to the point where there's some sort of pain, go a little bit more, and do that every day, twice a day, 3 times a day, something like that. And then what will happen is you're going to notice that you can articulate at a higher degree over time. So you're remodeling the joint and increasing the actual articulation. Takes time. Earlier that you start trying to rehabilitate the joint, the better, but it can be done. So please take my advice. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the super strong relief to kill the pain. Get the collagen and the collagen to help remodel the joint, and do that simple exercise where you just open up the joint, either in a flex or an extending position, up to the point of pain, and a little bit more, and count to 20 seconds. And do that 2 or 3 times a day. Do that every day, and you will notice within a short amount of time that you're going to be able to open up the joint more without pain. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
He's a vegan in Texas, and you can't get elected as a vegan in Texas.
Talk to Senate leadership on the Republican side about endorsing against an incumbent?
I did. They'll be all right with it. They want to win. I know how to win. Some of them don't know how to win. I know how to win. I think I've proven that, haven't I?
Are you worried about the ballroom funding, Mr. President? There's speculation that could be.
The ballrooms are being built. I'm building the ballroom. You saw it yesterday, right?
Yeah.
We're building a great ballroom. It's been needed. It's a very military complex. The roof is actually a drone port. The roof of the ballroom is a drone port, and it gives great safety to everything below. It's good. We're building a really great ballroom, but it's also a strong military position for our people.
Do you think Paul Netanyahu did better in the press briefing, or it's
Do I think who?
Vance or Rubio did better in the press briefing?
I think they both did great. What do you want me to say, right? I think they both did. Do you like that? That's pretty good, though, right? I think they both did good. I watched both of them. So, both very good men, really are.
Do you have a problem with Prime Minister Netanyahu?
But her husband votes against me all the time. Can you imagine? I don't know what's with him. You better ask him what's with him. Her husband, she's married to a certain congressman. He votes against. He likes voting against Trump. You know what happens with that? Doesn't work out well. I don't know why he does. But.
Mr. President, are you going to Taiwan? Do you have any plans to call President Lai before you make your decision on the arms deal?
What?
Do you have any plans to call President Lai of Taiwan before you make a decision on the weapons package?
Well, I'll speak to him. I speak to everybody. We have that situation very well in hand. We had a great meeting with President-Xi. It was amazing, actually. It was amazing. Many of you were there. We'll work on that, the Taiwan problem.
What have you said to Prime Minister Netanyahu about Iran and how long to hold off on strike?
He's fine. He'll do whatever I want him to do. He's very, very good man. He'll do whatever I want him to do, and he's a great guy. To me, he's a great guy. Don't forget, he was a wartime prime minister, and he's not treated right in Israel, in my opinion. I'm right now at 99% in Israel. I could run for prime minister. So maybe after I do this, I'll go to Israel, run for prime minister. I had a poll this morning. I'm 99%. So that's good. But no, he's a wartime prime minister. And I just don't think they treat him well. I think they have a president over there that treats him very poorly.
You're on the same page with him on Iran?
Yeah.
Have you spoken to anyone about replacing Lauren Boebert? After she,
if somebody comes along, I'd look. It's a little late in the race, but if somebody comes along, I'd look. Second.
Poland troops. Do you see yourself in him at all? A former reality TV star?
No, I'd like to see him do well. He's a character. I don't know him. I assume he probably supports me. Does he support me? I
think so.
So yeah, I heard he does. I heard he's a big MAGA person. He's doing well. I don't know. If you have a rigged vote out there, that's the problem. The votes are rigged. You have a really rigged vote in California. You have all the mail-in ballots, everything else. Very hard to win because the elections are very dishonest. If we had Jesus Christ come down and count the votes, I would have won California because I do great with Hispanics. But it's a rigged vote. They said that 38 million votes. Nobody knows where they're going. Of course, the Democrats do, I guess. But disproportionately, Democrats get many more votes. Some get 8 votes. They get 8 cards, and Republicans have to call in, where's my card? It's a rigged system. One of the most, not the worst, I'll give you a list. Maybe I'll do my list. But California is one of the most dishonest states for voting.
What's your message to the cadets today?
Just enjoy your life, enjoy it. They're great guys. It's my second time at the Coast Guard Academy. They're great guys. We like them. You don't realize how important Coast Guard is until you have a hurricane. And I remember the big hurricane in Texas where these kids go on boats and they're going to the waves that are 20 times higher than the boat. And I say, can they really make it? I'm watching this. And they say they find a way, but they were going into waves, these massive waves, to save people that were inside. And you don't realize it, but boy, they are good. They are good seamen. They are unbelievable. I wouldn't want to do it.
Mr. President,
I'm a very brave person, but I wouldn't want to do it.
What do you make of President-Xi meeting with Putin this week?
Well, he told me he was going to. I think it's good. I get along with both of them, but I think it's good. I don't know if the ceremony is quite as brilliant as mine. I watched. I think we topped them. good team. But no, I get along with Putin. I get along with everybody, but your husband and a few others.
On the Iran deal, would you be open to a limited deal that just covered the Strait of Hormuz?
Trump is not a brave person. Let me, and I voted for Trump 3 times. I'm glad he's president, but I also call balls and strikes when I see some BS from him. He's not a brave person. He's conflating a concept called he does risk taking. He's a risk taking individual. He's not brave. A brave person wouldn't try to get out of the Vietnam War by being a draft dodger as some sort of medical deferment. He didn't have to be on the front line. He could have served in the military and been a support staff. For every one soldier that's on the front line, you need 9 to 10 behind the scenes is support. He could have served. That's not being brave. When you bail out when you should have served. Secondly, people that are brave, they're ones that are like flying planes, sailing, right? They're taking life risks, right? There's a little bit of a danger, skydiving, right? My understanding is that he's never skydived. He hasn't learned how to fly a plane. He doesn't sail, right? He plays golf, and he got a medical deferment, so he didn't go into the Vietnam War. That's not being brave. He's a risk taker financially. He's a risk taker in the way he's doing politics. But he's not a brave person.
What does that mean?
On Iran, just a limited deal, just for a longer ceasefire.
We'd have to open the strait. That would open immediately. So we're going to give this one shot. I'm in no hurry. You never think, oh, the midterms, I'm in a hurry. I'm in no hurry. Ideally, I'd like to see few people killed as opposed to a lot. We can do it either way, but I'd like to see few people killed. I just wonder whether or not they have the good of the people, because some of the things they're doing to me means they don't have the good of the people, and they have to have the good of the people. There's a lot of anger now in Iran because people are living so badly. There's a lot of foment that we haven't seen before so much, and we'll see what happens.
Has it taken longer than you expected it would to make a deal with Iran?
Well, let's put it this way. You were in Vietnam 19 years, right? You were in Afghanistan and these other places 10 years. You were in Iraq. How long were you in Iraq? 12 years. You were in Korea for 7 years. World War II is different. That was 4 years. I'm in for 3 months. And much of it's been ceasefire. So, and you know what? You lost hundreds of thousands of soldiers in these various wars. In 2 wars, Venezuela, where we lost nobody, and here, we lost 13 people. Now, 13 people is 13 too much, but we lost 13 people. In other wars, you lost hundreds of thousands of people. So people don't like it when you say, oh, do you know you've lost 13? We've lost in 2 major wars. We took over Venezuela. We essentially took over Iran, and we've lost so far 13 people. Somebody else would have lost 100,000 people. Okay. But I get a kick when I look at somebody on television. He's lost 13 people. I lost 13 people. They lost 13 people leaving an airport. Obama, 13 very good people that I got to know their families. So what we've done is amazing, and we have them decimated. Iran is decimated, and I mean, you're going to see things that are amazing. You're going to see a lot of amazing things over the next 3 years for our country. And I'd like to talk more about the economic, because we have $18 trillion being spent, and no country's ever had anything like that. We have car plants pouring in from Mexico, Canada. They don't want to be there. There's no reason to be there because they want to sell to our market. We have car companies and plants coming in from Germany, from South Korea, from Japan, coming in by the billions. And they're being built now. You're going to see things that nobody thought was possible.
You're gonna end up saying he's the greatest president that ever lived. Goodbye, everybody.
He told me over the weekend, Mr. President, he suggested that there's still people in your DOJ and FBI that are waiting you out. They're waiting until your administration is over to get back to work. Do you think those people are still in the DOJ and FBI?
I hope not. Well, we're going to seek them out. We'll seek them out. We'll get rid of them. Okay? Because you have in every agency, you have scum. And certainly they did in the FBI and DOJ. But Todd Blanche is doing a fantastic job. Cash is doing a very good job. So we will prevail. I've been standing here a long time with you, many years, right? And they've been saying, I think it's it. I think he's trouble. Here I am, you know. It's a very constant situation. But I think you're going to find that we have great people in the FBI and we have great people in DOJ. Todd Blanche has really been doing a great job and a lot of things to come. We have a lot of things that are coming right now. It's going to be great. Our country is doing well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
All right, that's the end of the broadcast for today. Thank you for joining. I greatly appreciate if you share the links, click the like button, make sure that you follow me on the different channels, YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble, Substack. If you want to help support this free news coverage that I do, please be a paid member to my Substack channel, my Patreon channel, or donate. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee on my website. And it helps support this free content that I provide. Thank you for listening, and take my advice. Get healthy. I'm giving you the recipe. All you got to do is just follow the advice. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can slow down the aging process and improve your different organ systems so you can get healthy. And make sure you use the discount. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.